Chapter 1964, Visiting the Earth Spirit Sect, 2. Now that the war had ended, Jian Chen, Shenzhen, and Sacred Feather returned to the provincial city with the people from the Dong'an province. Shenzhen did not stick around for long. On the same day they returned, he bid farewell to Jian Chen and everyone else before setting off all by himself to find what was calling him in the distance. As for Xiongzhong, Qing Jingyun, and the others who came from the world of Forsaken Saints, they remained with the Tian Yuan clan. They were still too weak right now. If they went with their spirit king, not only would they fail to provide any support, but they would even weigh him down instead. After all, Shenzhen was leaving the cloud plane and entering outer space, venturing to a place beyond the cloud plane. He would face dangers everywhere. As for Jian Chen, he was conditioning himself in the Tian Yuan clan, quietly waiting for his visit to the Earth Spirit Sect to come in 3 days. At the same time, the 3 vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult who served the branch on the cloud plane gathered in a gloomy secret room within the headquarters. A thick demonic aura surrounded them as they gave off tremendous, terrifying presences, causing the air in the room to seemingly solidify. What are the higher-ups trying to do? The blood and soul beads that our branch spent so much time condensing have been stolen under the protection of the formations the Great Elder personally cast down, yet the Grand Elder has given no response at all. Not only has he not sent a chaotic prime to capture the person who stole the beads, but he hasn't even given orders to search for the beads. It's as if he doesn't care about the loss at all. Hasn't all our hard work over these years gone to waste? Huayan said. His face was obscured, but his voice was filled with doubt and confusion. Huayan, there are just some things that we can't do anything about. It's best if you stop criticizing the higher-ups. If the Grand Elder hears of it, he'll be displeased, Yi Huaiwe said indifferently. Then, she looked at the 3rd vice leader and said, Elder Sun, an unknown infinite prime captured Yashi Lian recently. Through the description from Yashi Lian, do you think the primordial realm expert who stole the blood and soul beads from our headquarters is the same person who captured Yashi Lian? The vice leader known as Elder Sun fell silent for a while. Only then did he say, the primordial realm expert who captured Yashi Lian uses moonlight combined with laws, while the person who intruded on our headquarters also used that. In my opinion, she's the same person. Since it's the same person, it's much easier to handle. According to my knowledge, the primordial realm expert seems to be related to a person called Jian Chen from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Yi Huaiwe said with ulterior motives. Jian Chen. It's Jian Chen again. Huayan's cold voice rang out. As soon as Jian Chen was mentioned, unconcealable killing intent rose up from his heart. He said, not only did Jian Chen stand up against us publicly, protecting the clan of Duanmu's successor, but it was also because of him that I had to agree to half a month of ceasefire. I even suspect that the blood and soul beads were robbed this time because of Jian Chen. He cannot be left alive. Huayan continued, the blood beads and soul beads were condensed after much difficulty, taking tremendous effort and time. We have to retrieve them, or we won't be able to give the Great Elder an explanation at all. Since Jian Chen is connected to all this, I'll start with him. There was cold killing intent in Huayan's voice. The higher-ups aren't actually looking into the loss of the blood and soul beads. There's something strange about it. There's probably something hidden that we do not know about in there. Huayan, I think it's best if you don't act recklessly, Elder Sun warned out of kind intentions. The loss of the blood and soul beads had filled him and Yi Huaiwe with regret as well, as every single one of those 18 tiny beads was condensed from their efforts. Every single one of the beads had cost them great efforts. Even though they knew the Great Elder needed the beads and they would not obtain a single one once they were completely condensed, it still represented their contribution and hard work. However, Yi Huaiwe and he could both tell that there was probably another side to the story, making it not as simple as it seemed on the surface. As a result, the two of them did not dare to act recklessly. Formations the Great Elder personally cast down protected the blood and soul bead. Chaotic primes could smash through the castle, but they would not be able to destroy those formations at all. Yet, the beads had all been lost while the formations remained intact. They were unsure if this was the purposeful arrangements of the higher-ups, or in other words, there was a scheme they did not know hidden in there. The light in Huai'an's eyes flickered. After a while of thought, he nodded slowly. I understand the weight of this matter. The Blood Sun Empire was located in the center of the southern region. It was the only eternal empire in the southern region, and 6 ancient empires surrounded it as well as countless divine kingdoms of various sizes. In the depths of a well-decorated hall within the imperial palace of the Blood Sun Empire, the heavy door to a secret room slowly opened with a heavy squeaks. A dignified middle-aged man in gold and violet robes stood there with his arms crossed before the secret room. When the door to the room was completely opened, the middle-aged man entered at a steady pace. Greetings, Ninth Prince. 3 middle-aged men were already standing politely within the secret room. They had been waiting for some time now. They all bowed at the middle-aged man who entered the secret room. The middle-aged man who had just entered the secret room was the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Even though there were over a dozen princes in the Blood Sun Empire, there was only a handful of them who truly stood out and had the right to succeed as emperor. Not only was the 9th Prince the one who stood out the most among them, but he was also the person that the current emperor valued the most. There were even rumors that once the emperor of the Blood Sun Empire abdicated, the next emperor would definitely be the 9th Prince. As a result, basically no other prince could match up to the 9th Prince's authority in the Blood Sun Empire. The 9th Prince stood before the 3 of them indifferently and ordered firmly, "The 3 of you visit the Mountains of Seven's Despair. You're the Heavenly Moon Empire. Bring me the flower of ways I planted there." After so many years of preparation, the 9th Prince had finally reached the peak of God King. He was only a single step away from the primordial realm. This step seemed short, but in reality, it was extremely distant and extremely difficult to take. Even with the 9th Prince's surprising talent, he would still need a very long time to reach the primordial realm. The Flower of Ways was the only heavenly resource that could allow him to overcome his current cultivation bottleneck in the shortest amount of time possible so that he could reach the primordial realm. The faces of the 3 God Kings changed when the prince mentioned the Flower of Ways. They looked at one another, and their faces were filled with bitterness. The 9th Prince frowned. He asked grimly, "Something has happened to the Flower of Ways?" The 3 middle-aged God Kings hesitated slightly. Finally, one of them gathered the courage to say, "9th Prince, the Flower of Ways has been taken by a primordial realm expert." The 9th Prince's eyes immediately emitted 2 shocking beams of light when he heard that. A tremendous presence radiated from his body like a flood. It was extremely terrifying. They were also God Kings, but when the 3 middle-aged men faced the presence that had erupted from the 9th Prince, they staggered backwards. They felt like a mountain had crushed down on them. "Let's go to the Mountains of Seven's Despair," the 9th Prince said emotionlessly. The Earth Spirit sect was one of the 2 peak sects in the Heavenly Moon Empire. They possessed an extremely great status in the Heavenly Moon Empire, where even the imperial family had to show them respect. The Earth Spirit sect was established in the 3,000 spiritual mountains that possessed the densest origin energy in the Heavenly Moon Empire. They used the mountains as a source of energy to cast down a tremendous protective formation. The formation was so powerful that even regular primordial realm experts would struggle to shake it. This day just happened to be the centennial disciple acceptance ceremony of the Earth Spirit sect. The narrow path between the mountains that led to the sect was already completely packed. Many young people of similar ages stood in groups neatly, taking the various tests set up by the Earth Spirit sect in an orderly manner. They wanted to join the Earth Spirit sect and become one of their disciples so that they could bring glory to their family and ancestors. There were many people from large clans who possessed some status in the Heavenly Moon Empire among them. They either rode powerful, tamed birds or beasts or luxurious carriages. As a result, the area outside the sect had already become filled with luxurious carriages as well as huge, powerful beasts. However, without any exceptions, no one dared to fly in the sky within 1,000 kilometers of the sect. They all traveled along the ground. At this moment, a golden streak of light suddenly appeared. It directly crossed through the sky at a high altitude, moving towards the Earth Spirit sect. They were still at the horizon, but in the next moment, they had crossed the distance and appeared outside the Earth Spirit sect. It did not land. Instead, it hovered in the sky at the same level as the highest mountain of the Earth Spirit sect. At a closer glance, the golden carriage was pulled by 9 exotic beasts. Each beast was very powerful, possessing the cultivation level of over-god. Who is the one in the carriage? He's behaving in such an imposing manner, still floating in the sky after arriving before the Earth Spirit sect. That altitude is the same as the highest peak of the Earth Spirit sect. What a bold person. Doesn't he know that these actions are no different to challenging the Earth Spirit sect? The only people bold enough to do something like this either don't know the rules of the Earth Spirit sect or are extremely impressive experts. However, even the Emperor of the Heavenly Moon Empire and elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds would not dare to fly that high. That's the same height as the mountain occupied by the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect. For a moment, everyone outside the sect stared at the golden carriage as they discussed among themselves. The elder who was responsible for the acceptance ceremony did not go up to stop the carriage when he saw it. Instead, his eyes narrowed, and he immediately grew stern. He had already recognized the carriage. The owner of the carriage did indeed possess the right to act that way now. At this moment, the formation around the Earth Spirit sect shook. It completely opened. This would only happen when the Earth Spirit sect had to receive people with great statuses. So it's the Pingtian Divine King. Our humble abode is honored to have the Divine King. Please come in, a peal of laughter rang out. The current sect master flew out with over a dozen elders from the sect. They were all enthusiastic. If it were before the Divine King had reached the primordial realm, the Earth Spirit sect would have never welcomed him with such a great crowd of people. However, ever since he had broken through, his status had changed greatly. There were no organizations within an ancient empire that would want to offend an expert like that for no good reason. Chapter 1965, Visiting the Earth Spirit Sect, 3, What? The person in the carriage is actually the Divine King of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian? It's said that he has reached the primordial realm now and is currently in infinite prime. He's on the same level as the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect, so it's the Divine King of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. That's what I was saying. Just who else would be bold enough to not only fly in the territory of the Earth Spirit sect but also maintain an altitude equal to the highest peak? Oh my god, is there really a primordial realm expert inside that golden carriage in the sky? That's a figure of legends. Many people don't get to see a single one in their entire lives. Naturally, the countless young people who had come to join the Earth Spirit sect and the seniors who accompanied them heard the sect master's voice loud and clear. It immediately led to a noisy clamor. In the next moment, the countless gazes that laid on the golden carriage shone. They were filled with excitement, envy, respect, and admiration. The primordial realm was a legendary level of cultivation to many of them. With their status, they did not even possess the right to see an expert like that. The Divine King's carriage made its way through the entrance of the Earth Spirit sect slowly under the warm welcome personally led by the sect master with the elders. They disappeared from view. In the center of the mountain range was a huge peak. Someone with great strength had forcefully cleaved it into an open square. The Divine King's golden carriage slowly came to a stop there. As the carriage opened, the white-robed Jian Chen and the dragon-robed Divine King emerged. The sect master was a scholarly, middle-aged man. Currently, he smiled from ear to ear, and just when he wanted to talk, the horizon became extraordinarily bright. It was as if a huge sun hung at the entrance of the sect, causing it to become 2 or 3 times brighter compared to elsewhere. Jian Chen sensed something. He looked over and saw a ruddy old man shining brilliantly like a sun, making his way over through the air from afar. The light he gave off was so bright that it directly suppressed the sun's light, making it pale in comparison. Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed the moment he saw the old man. The old man was only shining and gave off no presence, so he seemed ordinary. However, Jian Shen was able to tell with a single glance that the old man had surpassed God King and reached the primordial realm. The sect master and the many elders sensed the old man's arrival. Respect immediately filled all their faces, and they bowed at the old man. Greetings, ancestor. The ancestor moved extremely quickly. In just a single step, he traversed the distance and appeared before Jian Shen and the Divine King. He glanced past Jian Shen indifferently before directly looking at the Divine King. However, his indifferent glance made Jian Shen's heart beat heavily. At that moment, he felt like he was suffocating, and he had even lost control of his body for a split second. The primordial realm is indeed powerful. I really am like an ant before an expert like this, thought Jian Shen. He had seen quite a few primordial realm experts before. Aside from the Divine King and Huayan, he had seen many infinite primes in his trip to the northern region. He had even seen a chaotic prime that possessed even more terrifying strength. However, those primordial realm experts never released their presences purposefully, so Jian Shen did not experience anything particularly memorable. However, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect had shown off the might of the primordial realm at first glance. Even though it was just a split second, Jian Shen had truly felt how powerful the primordial realm was. Ping Tian, congratulations on reaching this cultivation level. I believe that before long, a seventh ancient empire will appear in our southern region. The ancestor clasped his fist at the Divine King before inviting him into the main hall. Everyone sat down within the main hall. The ancestor and the Divine King sat at similar levels. Sang Tu, let's cut to the chase. You should know why I've come here today. The Divine King directly approached the main reason behind his visit as soon as he sat down. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect remained silent. Your Majesty, what happened on the battlefield was indeed our disciple's fault. Our Earth Spirit sect is willing to compensate Brother Jian Shen for the injuries he suffered on the battlefield. Moreover, the protector who dealt the sneak attack to Brother Jian Shen with the talisman has already been expelled from our Earth Spirit sect. From today onwards, she is no longer our disciple. May I ask if Brother Jian Shen and Your Majesty is satisfied with this? The sect master said. The Divine King looked at Jian Shen, clearly asking for his thoughts. Jian Shen's lips curled into a cold smile. He said, how can something as precious as a God King level talisman end up in the hands of an over-god, especially an over-god who's not particularly powerful? As a result, the true suspect behind all this is not the protector. Instead, she was ordered to do so by your elders. The sect master became stern. He asked solemnly, Brother Jian Shen, may I ask if you have any evidence that points to the elders of our Earth Spirit sect as the suspect? If you're drawing a conclusion from a single God King level talisman all by yourself, isn't that a little too rash? Rash? I don't feel that it's rash at all. Instead, I think Jian Shen's words are reasonable, the Divine King said firmly. The sect master's face became unsettled. Once this matter involved people at the level of elders, it would be rather difficult to resolve. Their Earth Spirit sect could give up on a few over-god protectors, but God Kings were the pillars of support of the Earth Spirit sect. Losing even just one of them would affect the strength of the Earth Spirit sect. The elders seated in the hall all became stern. Bring me Muku. The ancestor said all of a sudden, but his face remained indifferent. Muku was an elder of the Earth Spirit sect as well as the master of the 7 protectors who had created a mess in the Dong'an province. The sect master's face immediately changed. After hesitating slightly, he still sent people to summon Elder Mu in the end. Very soon, Elder Mu entered the hall. He bowed at the ancestor and stood there with a sunken face. Jian Shen, the suspect you speak of, who is the master of those protectors, is right here. Do you plan on doing it yourself, or do you want Ping Tian to do it for you? The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect said indifferently. Ancestor, we still haven't completely investigated, the sect master said with some urgency. He was a God King elder, so he could not be handed over just like that. However, before he could finish speaking, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect had raised his hand to shut him up. He stared at Jian Shen deeply. If that's the case, I'll take him back with me, said the divine king. He handled the matter decisively and was about to take Muku. If that's the case, I'll take him back with me, said the divine king. He handled the matter decisively and was about to take Muku. However, just when the divine king was about to make his move, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect said suddenly, Ping Tian, don't you feel like you're lowering yourself too much by moving against a god king as a primordial realm expert? The divine king frowned at that. He said indifferently, Sang Tu, what are you trying to say? Do you want Jian Chen to fight a god king as an overgod? It's rumored that although Jian Chen has not attempted the overgod's plaque, he already possesses the strength to challenge the person who ranks first. Moreover, he defeated a god king lately. As a result, having Jian Chen fight Muku is relatively fair, the ancestor said indifferently. He looked at the divine king and continued, although Muku is a god king, he's only an early god king and not a supreme god king either. As a result, if you take action, Ping Tian, you'll be lowering yourself. Muku. The ancestor looked at Muku. His face was dignified to the point where he could not be denied. Ancestor. Elder Mu bowed politely. Muku, on the battlefield between the divine kingdom of Ping Tian and the Empyrean demon cult, your disciple ignored the bigger picture and attacked a person on her side despite the circumstances. As their master, you haven't managed to restrain them properly, so you are responsible for your disciple's mistakes. You need to give Jian Chen an explanation for this, the ancestor said. Yes, ancestor. Muku said politely. He did not dare to disobey. Jian Chen, what I can offer you is a battle against Muku, regardless of any deaths that may happen. What do you think? The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect said to Jian Chen. Jian Chen stood up. He looked at the ancestor with great interest. Not only did he show no fear, but his expression was also rather sharp. He said coldly, if that's the case, allow me to witness just how powerful the God King elders of your Earth Spirit sect are. Jian Chen glared at Elder Mu as powerful sword intent radiated from him. He said coldly, Muku, come fight me. There was also a certain sharpness in Elder Mu's old eyes. He said, I also want to witness the supreme prodigy who can challenge the first place on the Overgod's plaque. I want to see whether you really are as powerful as you are rumored to be, where you can defeat God Kings as an overgod. With that, Elder Mu made his way outside. Muku, only defeat is accepted in this battle. However, the ancestor's voice rang out in Muku's head at this moment. The secret message had come from an expert who had reached Infinite Prime many years ago, so even the Divine King was unable to hear it, let alone the other elders present. As a result, only Muku heard the message. Elder Mu immediately froze. His face rapidly changed a few times before returning to how it was before. He felt grief. There were many platforms of different sizes in the Earth Spirit sect. They were specially provided for spars between disciples. Currently, Jian Chen and Elder Mu stood before each other on the largest one. A barrier the ancestor cast down had surrounded the entire platform. The barrier was so powerful that even God Kings would struggle to get through it. It would easily resist the shockwaves of battle that appeared inside. Basically, all the elders of the Earth Spirit sect had gathered around the platform. Even the elders in seclusion had emerged to witness the fight. If it were just a battle between God Kings, it would be impossible for so many elders to watch. However, a battle between a supreme overgod who was powerful enough to challenge the first place on the overgod's plaque and a God King was attractive enough for all these God Kings to come to watch. Even primordial realm experts would pay some attention to it. Muku stood on the platform with an extremely sunken face. The ancestor's message continued to resound through his head. That message had basically severed any chance for him to survive, filling him with despair. I really never thought that when I suggested to my disciples to move against Jian Chen, not only would they fail to kill him successfully, but I'd even end up doomed instead, abandoned mercilessly by the sect. Didn't the humiliation of the disciples fall onto our Earth Spirit sect's pride? My actions were to recover our pride so that other people would not make use of our name to propel themselves. But in the end, I ruined myself instead. Elder Mu sighed emotionally inside. At that moment, he was filled with indescribable bitterness. However, his gaze became extremely cold soon afterwards. The powerful pressure that belonged to a god king radiated from him. Laws formed chains as they wrapped around him. He stared at Jian Shen in great interest as he thought, as a god king, even if I can't win, I can't let Jian Shen have it easy in this battle. I will use my full strength. Elder Mu moved. He wielded a wooden staff as he charged at Jian Shen with soaring battle intent. The terrifying power of his cultivation poured out from his body, and all of it condensed in the wooden staff at that moment. He extended it towards Jian Shen with the God King level laws in an overwhelming manner. Elder Mu did not hold back at all. He used his full strength, so the strike was extraordinarily powerful. When he extended his staff, the terrifying energy it contained actually affected the space within the barrier, making it twist. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect and the Divine King both furrowed their brows outside. Naturally, the two of them could tell that Mu Ku was using his full strength. They did not know if Jian Shen would actually be able to deal with such a powerful opponent. Although there were rumors that Jian Shen had defeated a god king in the northern region, it was still a rumor in the end. There were details they did not know, such as whether the rumor had been exaggerated or whether the god king was injured. Being able to challenge first place on the Overgod's plaque was only a descriptor of Jian Shen's strength. After all, he did not attempt the Overgod's plaque, so just how high he could rank on the Overgod's plaque and whether he really possessed the power to rival first place were unanswered questions. Does Mu Ku plan on disobeying me? The ancestor's heart sank slightly. Cold light flickered in his deep, dark eyes. Jian Shen's face did not change at all when he faced Elder Mu's aggressive strike on the platform. He wielded the startling rainbow sword as he protected himself with a layer of light, stabbing out with composure. The strike was simple and ordinary, without any fancy tricks to it at all. However, it was exactly this strike that possessed the deep mysteries of the sword. It conformed to the laws of the sword and coupled with the devastatingly powerful chaotic force, its might had completely surpassed the level of overgods, barely making it to the level of god kings. Even though it had only barely made it to the level of god kings, it was enough to rival early god kings due to the various advantages of the chaotic body. At the moment Jian Shen and Mu Ku struck out, the elders around the platform all squinted their eyes. Not only did they pay close attention to the battle, but all of them had even expanded the senses of their souls as well, enveloping the entire platform. They wanted to see the battle between the two clearly. They were unwilling to miss out on any detail. At the moment Jian Shen and Mu Ku struck out, the elders around the platform all squinted their eyes. Not only did they pay close attention to the battle, but all of them had even expanded the senses of their souls as well, enveloping the entire platform. They wanted to see the battle between the two clearly. They were unwilling to miss out on any detail. This was because this was an outstanding battle where an overgod challenged a god king. Even with the entire Saints world in perspective, a battle like this was extremely rare. After all, the people who were able to challenge god kings as overgods were basically all supreme prodigies who ranked within the top 10 of the overgod's plaque. Even the Divine King and the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect stared at the platform without blinking. They wanted to see if Jian Shen possessed the strength he had in the rumors, where he defeated a god king in the northern region as an overgod. Boom! Under the close watch of everyone, Jian Shen and Elder Mu's first attacks finally clashed. A violent boom immediately erupted on the platform. Powerful energy wreaked havoc on the platform as a visible current. Jian Shen and Mu Ku protected themselves with laws. The light around them flickered as they remained still. Not only had Jian Shen received Mu Ku's full-powered strike perfectly, but it also seemed like he had managed to match Mu Ku. Mu Ku's eyes immediately narrowed after the strike. His gaze towards Jian Shen had finally become stern. He had truly witnessed Jian Shen's strength after the clash. He knew that Jian Shen did not enjoy undeserved fame. He truly possessed the battle prowess to face off against a god king. Jian Chen's face was emotionless as his eyes shone with cold light, making his gaze as sharp as swords. He used the startling rainbow sword to block Mu Ku's wooden staff as he formed a seal with his other hand. Immediately, a golden strand of sword chi condensed above his head, radiating with powerful sword intent. The sword intent was so powerful that it caused Elder Mu's face to change slightly. He could clearly sense that the golden sword chi above Jian Chen's head was so powerful that it was enough to threaten him. Elder Mu responded extremely quickly. Just when Jian Chen's sword chi had condensed, he bellowed out, and he suddenly shot backwards. At the same time, the wooden staff in his hand danced. The power of laws wove together, rapidly condensing into a huge piece of wood. The appearance of the piece of wood was accompanied with the might of the world. The energy it contained was so powerful that it was enough to make the expression of any early god king in the Earth Spirit sect change. Jian Chen's Daluo sword had directly forced Mu Ku to use his battle skill. Mu Ku is actually using a battle skill. It looks like Jian Chen really does have some ability. He can actually force a god king into using a battle skill as an overgod. No wonder he's known as someone who can challenge the first place on the overgod's plaque. He is indeed very powerful. Jian Chen's reputation is deserved, so what if he deserves the reputation he possesses? Although prodigies who rank towards the top of the overgod's plaque can kill god kings, those are only ordinary god kings. Mu Ku is no ordinary god king. He has comprehended the various cultivation methods and battle skills of our Earth Spirit sect. Although his strength isn't enough for him to rank amongst the top of early god kings, he's still extraordinary, that's right. If Mu Ku did not use a battle skill, Jian Chen would indeed have the power to reach a stalemate against Mu Ku. However, since Mu Ku is using a battle skill, Jian Chen's defeat is certain. The many observing elders of the Earth Spirit sect sighed in amazement. This really was the first time they had seen such a powerful overgod, where he could hold his ground against a god king and even force him into using a battle skill. After all, they had only heard legends of overgods fighting god kings. And these legends were mostly exaggerated. However, the gaze of the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect could not help but become slightly sunken when he saw how Mu Ku not only disobeyed his orders, but he had even become bolder as the battle went on. Go! At this moment, Mu Ku called out. As he extended his finger, the huge piece of wood shot off as a streak of green light towards Jian Chen with unbelievable speed. Boom! The huge piece of wood collided with the golden sword chi, erupting with a deafening sound. The entire platform shook heavily from their strike while even the ground had cracked. However, Jian Chen's attacks were as intense as a storm. Before the effects of the previous attack had completely settled down, another attack would come. When the sword chi collided with the huge piece of wood, he became covered with light. Afterwards, he turned into a bolt of lightning and suddenly shot off with unbelievable speed. How is Jian Chen so powerful? He even stopped my battle skill, and he's only an overgod. Mu Ku was amazed by Jian Chen's strength. He knew that the ancestor had ordered him to throw the battle, but he did not want to lose in such a miserable way. Originally, he believed he could rely on his cultivation as a god king to heavily injure Jian Chen in an overwhelming manner before forfeiting before everyone, so Jian Chen had defeated him. He wanted to show everyone just how helpless and without a choice he was to choose defeat. He did not want to truly lose to Jian Chen in battle. However, he had never thought that Jian Chen's strength would completely exceed his expectations. He was already using his full strength, and he had even used a battle skill, yet Jian Chen still managed to match him evenly, preventing him from gaining the upper hand at all. However, just when Mu Ku was amazed, his eyes suddenly narrowed. Up ahead, a streak of light suddenly shot over at an unbelievable speed, punching through Elder Mu's body instantly. It was fast, simply too fast. The streak of light was so fast that even Mu Ku was unable to catch a glimpse of it. He only managed to find it with the senses of his soul, but it was impossible for him to react due to how close and fast the streak of light was. Mu Ku stood there frozen. He lowered his head and stared at the bowl-sized hole in his chest. He refused to accept this outcome. How? What secret technique did Jian Qin use earlier to move so quickly? The elders observing the battle were all shocked as well. They had never expected something like this. It's Mu Ku's defeat. The ancestor stood up and declared the outcome of the battle. At the same time, he finally let out a breath of relief inside. Jian Qin, according to our earlier agreement, Mu Ku's life belongs to you, the ancestor said to Jian Qin as he removed the barrier around the platform. Jian Qin, are you fine? The divine king appeared before Jian Qin silently and asked in concern. Thank you for your concern, your majesty. I'm fine, said Jian Qin. Then, he looked at Mu Ku. A cold light flickered through his eyes. Mu Ku turned around in dejection and looked at Jian Qin gloomily. He said, Jian Qin, do it. As he said that, he closed his eyes. All his hopes vanished at that moment. Brother Jian Qin, please show mercy. We will be eternally grateful if you spare Mu Ku's life. Brother Jian Qin, please stay your hand. We are willing to make it up to you in different ways as long as you spare Mu Ku's life. All the elders pleaded for mercy. Even the sect master looked at the ancestor, hoping he would step forward to save Mu Ku. God Kings were the pillars of support of the Earth Spirit sect. They were extremely important. The ancestor remained emotionless and said nothing. Jian Qin stared at Mu Ku. The light in his eyes flickered, and after a while of thought, he said slowly, Mu Ku, I'll give you two choices. The first is that I can kill you right now and disperse your soul, reducing your arduous cultivation of countless years to nothing. The second is that you will immediately swear to protect my Tian Yuan clan for 10,000 years. You will recover your freedom after those 10 millennia. Jian Qin's surprising suggestion stunned everyone present. Even the divine king was extremely surprised. Jian Qin's surprising suggestion stunned everyone present. Even the divine king was extremely surprised. However, all the elder who pleaded for Mu Ku became delighted soon afterwards. To them, protecting the Tian Yuan clan for 10,000 years was nothing compared to Mu Ku's life. Every single god king had lived for a very long time. Who knew how many millennia they had lived for? As a result, 10 millennia was just too short in their eyes. The sect master finally let out a sigh of relief inside as well. Even though he felt like it was an extremely disgraceful and humiliating matter for a god king to guard an over-god's clan for 10,000 years, the disgrace and humiliation was nothing compared to Mu Ku's life. Moreover, this over-god was no ordinary over-god. Rather, it was one that possessed extraordinary strength and could truly challenge the person ranked first on the over-god's plaque. Once an over-god like that became a god king, they would definitely be able to make it onto the god king's throne. They might even be able to challenge primordial realm experts as god kings. Guarding the clan of a supreme over-god like this for 10,000 years was not necessarily embarrassing. Elder Mu, stop hesitating. Agree to it. Many of the god kings, including the sect master, urged Mu Ku secretly. On the platform, Mu Ku stood there with a pale face. He was gloomy as he stared at Jian Qin in a gloomy daze. Naturally, he had heard the many messages from his fellow elders, but getting him, a mighty god king, to guard someone else's clan for 10,000 years was something extremely difficult to accept. Elder Mu stood on the platform in thought for a very long time. He was in a serious dilemma. In the end, he slowly turned his head and looked at the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect stood in the distance calmly. He showed no particular emotion at all. In the end, Elder Mu looked at Jian Qin again. With mixed feelings, he looked at this person who was only an over-god, yet possessed battle prowess so great that even he could not rival. He sighed helplessly inside before saying with some sorrow, I'll guard your clan for 10,000 years. This short sentence had taken a lot of energy for Mu Ku to say. He seemed to have withered after saying that as if he had lost his soul. He was completely dejected. Since the grievance has been resolved, it's time for us to go. Sang 2, we can catch up some other time, the Divine King said to the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect clasped his fist at the Divine King. After a simple conversation, he bid farewell to the Divine King. Afterwards, the Divine King and Jian Chen climbed back onto the carriage and shot off under the gazes of the many elders and disciples. Elder Mu did not leave with them. He would be settling down in the Tian Yuan clan after he departed, and he would guard the clan for 10,000 years. As a result, there were matters he had to take care of before he left. Mu Ku, come and see me, the ancestor said to Mu Ku before drifting off. On the highest peak within the mountain ranges of the Earth Spirit sect, origin energy had formed a mist that curled around the mountain top, obscuring it, making it seem like it reached into the clouds. This mountain peak was the symbol of the essence of the Earth Spirit sect as well as the very backbone that supported the prosperous sect. It was where the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect cultivated. At this moment, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect stood by a cliff on the top of the mountain. He gazed into the distance deeply as the wind there whistled, buffeting his long, silver hair and clothes. Behind him stood the current sect master and a dispirited Mu Ku. Mu Ku, do you know what I wanted you to be defeated? The ancestor said calmly with his back towards Mu Ku. However, the calm voice was filled with some helplessness. I did not know originally, but I understood afterwards. It's because the primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen is very powerful, said Mu Ku. Ancestor, do you know the identity of the primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen? The sect master asked. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect let out a long sigh. I don't know who the primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen is, but she's not someone our Earth Spirit sect can afford to offend. She's so powerful that she only needs a simple gesture to destroy our Earth Spirit sect. As he said that, the ancestor could not help but think about what had happened 3 days ago. Back then, when he was cultivating in his secret room, a beautiful woman in white clothes had appeared before him silently. If it were not for the fact that the woman had purposefully let out her presence and alarmed him, he probably would not have known that an outsider had intruded on the secret room he had covered with formations even if he died. Although the woman did not touch him, the presence she gave off was so powerful that the ancestor was still able to recall it like it was new. He would never forget that presence. Before it, he could not even resist as if he stood before a chaotic prime. He felt as insignificant as an ant. He did not doubt at all that the woman possessed the terrifying strength to obliterate the Earth Spirit sect with a simple gesture. His Earth Spirit sect could never afford to offend such a powerful expert. Both Elder Mu and the current sect master were shocked and they heard the ancestor's words. They had all heard that there was a primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen, but they never thought that she possessed strength that was so terrifying that even their ancestor would be so frightened. Do you understand now? A sliver of bitterness appeared on the ancestor's face. He said helplessly, we can't offend the person behind Jian Chen, but we still have to keep our pride. If we directly give in, it'll damage our name if news of the matter makes it out. This was why I wanted you to lose to Jian Chen in the battle before everyone. That way, not only would Jian Chen get the explanation he deserves, but the expert behind him would also not be offended, and we would be able to keep our pride. Although it's not a very glorious matter for a god king to lose to an over-god, Jian Chen has already defeated a god king in the northern region. He already possesses the strength to challenge first place on the over-god's plaque. Losing to a supreme over-god like that is nothing disgraceful. Mu Ku, go tidy your things. Once you're ready, set off and protect the Tian Yuan clan for 10,000 years. Yes, ancestor, Mu Ku said politely. Warmth filled his heart. Now, he finally understood why the ancestor had told him that only defeat was accepted in his battle against Jian Chen. As it turned out, an expert who could easily destroy the entire Earth Spirit sect backed up Jian Chen. No wonder the ancestor had made a decision like that. After the sect master and Mu Ku departed, the ancestor stood on the edge of the cliff in thought for a while. Afterwards, a fragment of jade immediately appeared in his hand with a single movement. He used the power of his soul to engrave information onto the jade fragment. A while later, he suddenly looked into the distance and waved his hand, tossing out the jade fragment. Immediately, the jade fragment turned into a streak of white light, shooting off with unbelievable speed. It instantly disappeared. Several middle-aged men appeared silently within the miasma-shrouded depths of the Een Mountains of Seven's despair. They hovered in the air as they stared down with sunken faces. The mountains below them had already collapsed. There was rubble everywhere, and it was a mess. In the loose rubble, there were several huge figures that could be clearly seen laying on the ground. Even though they were already dead, quite a powerful pressure still leaked out from their bodies. Every single one of them was a late god king before they died. Who did this? Who has stolen my flower of ways? A middle-aged man in violet and golden robes at the very front currently stared downwards coldly as he said through gritted teeth. This middle-aged man was the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. 9th Prince, I've already sent people to investigate, but this relates to a primordial realm expert after all. It'll take some time to find out some things. However, I believe some leads will be found very soon, a god king said carefully from behind the 9th Prince. Speed up the investigation. I want to learn about this primordial realm expert in the shortest amount of time possible. So what if you're a primordial realm expert? You've taken my flower of ways. The 9th Prince's gaze was cold. He had already reached peak God King and was only a step away from the primordial realm. Originally, he would have been able to take this step easily with the flower of ways, and he would not have to waste so much time for it. However, now that the flower of ways had been taken away, it would take him much longer to reach the primordial realm. At this moment, a white piece of jade shot through the air, directly arriving before the 9th Prince. The 9th Prince stared at the piece of jade calmly and slowly grabbed it. He said, "This probably came from a primordial realm expert. It seems like it's from the primordial realm experts of the Heavenly Moon Empire. Looking at its direction, it should be from the one in the Earth Spirit sect. 9th Prince, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect has sent us a jade slip. Does he know something?" One of the people behind the 9th Prince asked. "Let's hope so," the 9th Prince said coldly before extending the senses of his soul into the jade slip. Very soon, he looked through all of its contents, and a gleam of cold light flickered through his eyes. He crushed the jade slip and said emotionlessly, "Let's go to the Dong'an province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian." Jian Shen directly returned to the Tian Yuan clan. As soon as he returned, he could clearly sense that the atmosphere of the clan seemed to have become. It was especially energetic, filled with great joy. "Patriarch, you've finally returned. Shiyu has broken through and become an over-god." Mo Ling saw Jian Shen in the distance and immediately ran over in high spirits. The Tian Yuan clan gaining another over-god was definitely something worthy of celebration. This was because in the current divine kingdom of Pingtian, over-gods were supreme rulers of provinces. Shiyu. As soon as Shiyu was mentioned, Jian Shen could not help but think back to the embroidered box he had given to Princess Tian during the time he had spent in the northern region. It has already been so long, yet there's still no news. I wonder whether my guess is wrong or the princess still hasn't given the box to the Shi Emperor or the Empress, Jian Shen thought. Shiyu, congratulations on successfully becoming an over-god. In the future, you will also be a famed expert of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jian Shen congratulated Shiyu sincerely with a happy smile when he saw her. Shiyu, congratulations on successfully becoming an over-god. In the future, you will also be a famed expert of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jian Shen congratulated Shiyu sincerely with a happy smile when he saw her. There was not a lot of over-gods in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Coupled with the fact that a few had died during the battle against the Empyrean demon cult, there were even fewer over-gods now. Now that Shiyu had successfully become an over-god in these circumstances, her status would be extremely great in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Shiyu wore a luxurious white dress, while her black, glossy hair had been specially styled into a bun at the back of her head. As a result, she completely lacked the heroic spirit from before. Instead, she seemed more like the treasured daughter of a large clan. I could only become an overgod so quickly because of the patriarch's nurturing. Shiyu bowed slightly. She spoke softly, where her voice was extremely pleasant. The light in her eyes shone as she looked straight at Jian Chen. Shiyu's talent was indeed very great. With the talent she had displayed right now, there was completely no need for her to take as long as she did to become an overgod. She could have accomplished it sooner. However, unfortunately, the Mo clan was just too weak. They were only a clan with a god, so they did not have that many resources to raise a prodigy like Shiyu. As a result, Shiyu only became a deity after 2,000 years of cultivation in the Mo clan. Only after meeting Jian Chen did she receive full support in nurturing, gaining both large amounts of divine crystals and guidance in comprehending the laws of the sword. Her strength had skyrocketed after that, so she went from the deity before to an overgod now in such a short amount of time. Shiyu's talent is no less than the prodigies of large clans. Jian Chen could not help but be amazed as well. He had met quite a few prodigies from those ancient empires in the past few days, so he possessed some understanding towards them. Now that he compared Shiyu to those so-called prodigies, he found that Shiyu was actually far more impressive than them. Jian Chen looked at Shiyu with some mixed feelings. He said, "Shiyu, staying at the Tian Yuan clan is basically wasting away your talent. The current Tian Yuan clan can no longer provide for you such that you can grow faster. Staying here will only waste your potential. Only those peak sects in eternal empires can allow you to climb higher and further. Are you chasing me away?" Shiyu looked at Jian Chen as her face became slightly gloomy and depressed. Jian Chen shook his head and sighed gently. "I don't intend to chase you away. I'm just thinking for you. I hope you are able to go as far as you can on the path of cultivation, or even reach the apex of the saints' world." The patriarch of the Mo clan from before, Mo Xingfeng, looked at Shiyu and sighed inside. He said, "The patriarch is right. Consider the patriarch's suggestion to join those larger sections." Mo Xingfeng had basically watched Shiyu grow up. There was no other person who understood Shiyu better than him. He felt very helpless about this. He truly wished from the bottom of his heart that Shiyu could leave the Tian Yuan clan temporarily and join those powerful sections. It would be better for her like that. "No, don't let Sister Shiyu go. Sister Shiyu, don't leave me, okay? I really don't want to separate from you." At this moment, Mo Yen also ran over. She clung onto Shiyu's arm tightly as she spoke with much unwillingness to part with her. Afterwards, she waved her little fist at Jian Chen angrily and said fiercely, "Patriarch Jian Chen, you can't let Sister Shiyu go, or I'll never forgive you." Jian Chen smiled and looked at Mo Yen rather helplessly. Although Mo Yen was older than him, he had begun to treat her as his little sister long ago. He wanted to protect Mo Yen from the bottom of his heart. However, once Jian Chen thought about Mo Yan's cultivation, he felt pained. This girl disliked cultivation very much, and she would put up an attitude as soon as it was mentioned. As a result, she basically made no progress across the years, remaining at sainthood. "Thank you for your concern, Patriarch, but I have no interest in joining those large sections. Moreover, haven't you, Patriarch, not joined any large sects either, and your strength still grows rapidly? As a result, I believe that I too can become a powerful expert even if I don't join those large sects," Shiyu said firmly. Jian Chen was helpless from Shiyu's insistence. He could only sigh gently inside before turning around and leaving. Unknowingly, Jian Chen had already arrived in the forbidden grounds of the Tian Yuan clan. A powerful formation enveloped the forbidden grounds, and only a handful of people possessed the right to enter the place. Standing in the forbidden grounds, Jian Chen could not help but think of Shangguan Mu'er. Originally, Shangguan Mu'er should have been cultivating here, waiting for him to come home. However, he had never thought that his visit to the northern region would result in their separation. "Mu'er, I wonder if you've arrived at the Taoist sect of Divine Sound and if they're treating you well? You have to spend your time well there and wait for me to pick you up." Although I don't know where the Skyfire Plain is or just how distant it is from the Cloud Plain, I will definitely go there. Jianchen clasped his fist tightly as determination filled his eyes. However, Jianchen's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he turned around. A slender figure stood behind him silently, looking at Jianchen calmly. "Kaya, it's you." Jianchen was surprised. He looked at Kaya with complete shock as his heart was in turmoil. This was because he had actually failed to sense Kaya approach him at all earlier. He did not even know when Kaya had appeared behind him and how long she had been standing there. Jianchen immediately looked at her with his full attention, studying Kaya carefully. That immediately made him gasp as disbelief filled his face. His heart churned. "Kaya, your cultivation," Jianchen said in shock. At that moment, he struggled to believe what he was seeing. He discovered that Kaya's strength had actually risen to late over God in such a short amount of time. Jianchen felt like he was dreaming. Just how long ago had Kaya woken up for? When she woke up, she was only a saint emperor, yet she had already become a late over God now. Jianchen was stunned by how quickly her strength had increased. It was so fast that it even left Jianchen in the dust. With that speed, probably only Fairy Haoyu, who had been a primordial realm expert in her former life, could surpass Kaya. "Jianchen, thank you for the monster core and all those divine crystals. It's exactly because of them that my cultivation has managed to grow so rapidly," Kaya said to Jianchen. From her indifferent expression, it was as if she did not know just how great of a disturbance her speedy cultivation could have created in the saint's world. Cultivation can be increased by absorbing a large number of divine crystals. But the comprehension of the laws of the world, Jianchen hesitated. Kaya had surprised him far too much. A sliver of confusion appeared in Kaya's eyes. She said, "I don't know why either. My comprehension of the laws of the world seems to be especially easy, where I can grasp the laws without any effort. I've already grasped 3 laws now. And it seems like I can absorb the energy of divine crystals thousands of times faster than others." As she said that, Kaya immediately used the power of laws with a thought. Immediately, 3 different types of laws condensed. Jianchen was stunned when he saw the laws revolve around Kaya. He murmured, "The laws of destruction, the laws of fire, and the last one seems to be the laws of creation." To Jianchen's great surprise, Kaya's 3 laws had all reached late over God. Jianchen looked at Kaya with extremely mixed feelings. The shock that Kaya had brought was just far too great. Many of them could not be comprehended with logic. Her strength had increased so quickly that it was unbelievable. Her cultivation speed and ease of comprehending laws even made Jianchen suspect that Kaya was the reincarnation of some supreme expert. This was because, according to his understanding, only a primordial realm expert like Fairy Haoyu, who retained all her memories, could increase their strength so quickly. "Kaya, your cultivation has been smooth sailing. It could even be called without any effort, with no exaggeration. You haven't come across any bottlenecks at all. However, I must advise you to not cultivate too quickly, or your foundations will weaken." Jianchen looked at Kaya and said sternly. Kaya was not Fairy Haoyu after all. Jianchen felt slightly worried about how quickly she had been cultivating. He was worried that Kaya would suffer from extreme side effects from cultivating so quickly, which would affect her future. She might even be doomed in the end. "Yeah, I understand that as well. As a result, I don't plan on cultivating for the next period of time. Instead, I'll devote myself to consolidating my cultivation, just in case it really does lead to any side effects," Kaya agreed. After hesitating slightly, she stared at Jianchen with brimming interest and said rather energetically, "Jianchen, although I'm a late over God now, I only possess the strength. I haven't fought anyone before, so I don't know how powerful I actually am. Why don't we spar so that I can try my current battle prowess?" "Fair enough. The Saints' world is no different from the Tian Yuan continent. You never had much battle experience on the Tian Yuan continent. Now that you've come to the Saints' world, there's even more reason for you to gain some proper experience. At the same time, you've gained such a great amount of strength in such a short amount of time. This strength also needs to experience battle after battle. Only then will you be able to use it with familiarity. Jian Shen agreed extremely happily before leaving the Tian Yuan clan with Kaya. As Kaya was already a late-over god, the shockwaves of the battle between the two of them would definitely be far more than the provincial city could endure. As a result, Jian Shen chose to spar far away from the city. He selected a remote mountain range. Jian Shen hovered above the mountains and looked at Kaya calmly. "Kaya, go ahead." "Jian Shen, be careful," Kaya said sternly. With that, her presence changed suddenly. At the same time, the temperature in the surroundings skyrocketed. Fire appeared around Kaya, flickering in the space and giving off terrifying heat. It dyed the surroundings red. The thick layer of clouds in the sky directly dispersed at that moment. The terrifying heat from Kaya's flames had vaporized them. Jian Shen could not help but become rather stern as he stared at the laws of fire that filled Kaya's surroundings. He thought, strange. Kaya's laws of fire seem slightly different from other people's. It's as if her laws are even purer compared to the laws of fire from other late-over gods. If there were some impurities within the laws of fire from other over-gods, then Kaya's laws of fire would have no impurities at all. It is extremely pure. Jian Shen felt extremely surprised once again. Kaya was simply extraordinary. At this moment, Kaya moved. The flickering flames around her turned into an endless sea of fire, flying towards Jian Shen quickly with terrifying heat. The presence she gave off was even more surprising, directly plunging into the sky and shaking up the ground. She sent out a palm strike, and the endless sea of fire moved with that. The flames all gathered together at that moment, compressing into the size of a hand. It shone with light as dazzling as the sun, preventing people from staring at it directly. A gleam of light flickered through Jian Shen's eyes. He became extremely stern. He did not use the startling rainbow sword. Instead, he also struck out with his hand like Kaya. The palm strike was accompanied by chaotic force, which gave off a presence of destruction. The laws of the sword revolved around it, so his strike possessed both black and white. Boom! The two strikes collided and produced a deep rumble. Terrifying energy shot off in all directions, and the mountains beneath them all crumbled, kicking dust into the air. In the sky, Jian Shen and Kaya stood unmoving. Their hands remained pressed together. One of them shone with black and white light as chaotic force and the laws of the sword churned. The other hand was dazzling, like the sun that had been shrunken. It was blinding and gave off a terrifying heat, turning the surroundings red as if even the air had been burnt. Jian Shen shivered. Even though he had only used 70% of his strength in this strike, Kaya had managed to match him. This surprised him. However, in the next moment, his hand moved such that only a few fingers remained extended. A beam of light 3 inches long shot out, and he directly slashed it at Kaya's hand. Even though the sword chi had shot out from Jian Shen's fingers, he was already using 80% of his strength, so the sword chi could tear through almost anything. The laws of fire that had been suppressed in Kaya's hand were directly cleaved in half by Jian Shen, causing them to split. However, the laws of fire did not disperse. Instead, they turned into 2 flaming streaks of red light as they shot towards Jian Shen with unbelievable speed. At the same time, Kaya sent out a second palm strike. It was covered with flames as it crushed towards Jian Shen with great might. Immediately, Jian Shen seemed to feel a mysterious power fill his surroundings as if he had fallen into mud. All his movements dulled. Jian Shen's eyes narrowed. Kaya's strike had completely taken him by surprise. Moreover, he discovered that Kaya's usage of the laws of fire had already reached great mastery, and it was nothing like someone who had just comprehended laws. Moreover, he could clearly sense that Kaya's strikes seemed to possess some type of profound truth. Clearly, it was just a simple strike, but it resonated with the world as if each strike was a battle skill, making it extremely powerful. Everything happened in a split second. Just when the two strands of laws shot towards Jian Chen at great speed, Jian Chen extended his fingers as well, sending out two strands of sword qi to block the two attacks from Kaya. Afterwards, he brought his hands together. Chaotic force churned, and a black strand of sword qi a meter in length appeared silently. He stabbed it out with the presence of destruction. Even though the two of them were sparring to check on Kaya's strength, the two of them fought with great intensity. Booms rang out in the sky as the laws of the sword and the laws of fire mingled, colliding time and time again. The mountains below had already been reduced to a mess. The countless specks of green on the mountains had been reduced to ash, and when some sparks fell down, the tough rock was even reduced to a red liquid in just a few short seconds. Jian Chen's strength had gone up from the initial 70% to 80% now. However, when Kaya used her laws of destruction, combining them with the laws of fire, she forced Jian Chen to use 90% of his strength, even making him draw the startling rainbow sword. Kaya's battle prowess had already surpassed the limits of late over God when she used the laws of destruction. It was basically approaching God King. It was not because the laws of destruction were too powerful. In terms of the simple rankings of offensive power, the laws of destruction were equal to the laws of the sword. However, Kaya's laws of destruction were the same as her laws of fire. She was able to display extraordinary might as if she possessed unimaginable understanding and grasp over both the laws of fire and the laws of destruction. As a result, she could unleash power beyond her cultivation level. Jian Chen even suspected that his understanding and grasp over the laws of the sword were not as great as Kaya's laws of fire and destruction. This was because Kaya's usage of the two laws would seem perfect even in Jian Chen's eyes from time to time. It was extraordinary. Is Kaya born to use the laws of fire and destruction? Jian Chen even experienced such strange thoughts. However, at this moment, darkness descended. The world suddenly darkened as a huge, demonic cloud stretched over the sky, obscuring the sun and throwing the mountain range into darkness. Jian Chen, you sure are bold. You've offended our Empyrean demon cult, yet you're still not hiding properly in the royal capital so that the divine king can protect you. Instead, you come to this area of wilderness. A cold voice filled with killing intent rang out as the darkness descended. The sudden change made Jian Chen and Kaya stop their spar. When the somewhat familiar voice rang out, Jian Chen's face abruptly changed. Huayan. Jian Chen growled. He became extremely grim and pushed Kaya far away without any hesitation. He called out, "Run!" Jian Chen had never thought that as one of the three great vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult, Huayan would come personally for him. This immediately made his heart sink. Huayan was a primordial realm expert. With Jian Chen's current strength, he could not even flee before someone like that. Kaya did not run away. She arrived before Jian Chen again and raised her head at the sky. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the dark clouds and see the figure hidden in there. Seeing how Kaya did not run away, Jian Chen immediately panicked. He called out, "Why did you come back? Go, leave this place as quickly as possible." Kaya shook her head as she looked at how flustered Jian Chen had become. She said seriously, "I'm not running. If we're going to run, you run first. My life was saved by you. How can I run away all by myself when you're in danger?" Kaya's calm voice was firm. Kaya shook her head as she looked at how flustered Jian Chen had become. She said seriously, "I'm not running. If we're going to run, you run first. My life was saved by you. How can I run away all by myself when you're in danger?" Kaya's calm voice was firm. How are you so stupid? This is a primordial realm expert. He's so powerful that even if we work together, we won't be able to put up a fight at all. He has come especially for me, and it has nothing to do with you. If you leave, he won't pursue you, but if you stay, you'll just lose your life for nothing, Jian Chen said in a panic. He hoped to persuade Kaya to leave. He knew just how great the difference between him and primordial realm experts was. It was basically a chasm. As a result, he had already given up on running before an expert like that. This was because he understood that even if he used the linear lightning release before someone like that, he would not be able to escape. Hee. Jian, you're about to die, yet you're still worrying about other people. It looks like this girl is quite important to you. Whatever. Since that's the case, I'll kill you both. Huaiyan's sneer rang out like thunder. Afterwards, the clouds in the sky churned wildly and condensed into a huge palm that gave off a terrifying, devastating presence. At the same time, the other two vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult sat within a hall as black mist completely shrouded their bodies. It looks like this Huaiyan really can't resist moving against Jian, an old voice rang out. The vice leader called Elder Sun had spoken, and there was some helplessness on his face. I knew this would happen. Huaiyan is a vengeful person after all. Not only has Jian protected the successor of Huaiyan's enemy, Duanmu, but Huaiyan was also forced to do things against his will recently with how Yaxi Lian was captured and used against him by the Divine King. In the end, he could only agree to the Divine King's ceasefire without any other choice. Jian directly contributed to this, so how can Huaiyan not resent him? Moreover, the brat called Jian really does possess impressive talent. If he manages to mature successfully, he'll definitely become a peak expert. As a result, Huaiyan needs to move now to kill him before he has fully grown up, or Huaiyan will be the one in trouble once Jian truly becomes powerful, said Yi Huaiwe. I don't care about Jian life or death. It's just that I don't feel like the reactions from above are as simple as they seem regarding the loss of the blood and soul beads. There must be something hidden in there we don't know. I even suspect that the loss of the blood and soul beads were planned by the higher-ups. If it really was planned, I'm afraid that Huaiyan might ruin it all if he attacks Jian. The consequence of that isn't something we can bear, Elder Sun said with some worry. Elder Sun, we've already warned Huaiyan. It's he who insists on doing it. If his actions really do foil the plans of the higher-ups, it'll be his burden alone to bear. It has nothing to do with us, said Yi Huaiwe. Although the three vice leaders possessed different strengths, their statuses were the same, so they did not have the authority to stick their noses into each other's businesses. Now that Huaiyan had set off all by himself, the two of them had no right to interfere. That's reasonable. In short, we can't take part in this matter. Let's just wait and see, nodded Elder Senator Huai and hovered in the demonic clouds within the divine kingdom of Pingtian. As his palm pressed down gently, the hand condensed from the endless clouds immediately crushed down towards Jian and Kaya with a terrifying pressure. A strike from a primordial realm expert was so powerful that the terrifying pressure caused all the mountains below to rumble heavily. Before the hand had reached them, the rocks were already crushed, unable to endure the pressure. Jian and Kaya were immobilized as the hand fell towards them as if they had been trapped where they were. Jian became extremely grim as he watched the hand slowly descend from the sky. Even though he knew he was probably doomed today, he was not just going to sit here and wait for his fate. In the next moment, 2 strands of finger-sized sword chi hovered above his head, radiating with sword intent. At this moment, the only thing he could use was the profound sword chi. The fusion of the twin swords was impossible. Once he revealed them before a primordial realm expert, there was just too great of a chance of exposing himself. At that time, he and Kaya would not be the only ones dead. The Tian Yuan clan would be destroyed as well. The laws of creation, destruction, and fire revolved around Kaya. Her presence rapidly rose, and vaguely, some truths of the world seemed to revolve around her. Clearly, she was the same as Jian, wanting to put up a desperate stand. Swish. Swish. With the 2 sounds, 2 resplendent streaks of white light shot off into the sky. Radiating with soaring sword intent, they rushed towards the hand condensed from the black clouds in an unstoppable manner. Jian struck out first, using the 2 strands of profound sword chi at the same time. However, once he used the 2 strands of sword chi, basically all the power of his soul was sapped. Waves of dizziness surged up. Afterwards, Kaya moved as well. The seal formed from her two hands changed, and the laws of creation, destruction, and fire jumped about on the tip of her finger. In the end, it condensed into a complicated and profound glyph that shot towards the sky with the presence of the world. Jian Chen's two strands of sword qi collided with the hand condensed from demonic aura. It directly penetrated the hand, creating a hole that was 10 meters wide. However, that was all. The profound sword qi was unable to penetrate through the hand completely, let alone disperse it. It only managed to create a hole before it completely dispersed. Boom! However, in the next moment, there was a deafening boom. The glyph condensed from Kaiya's 3 different types of laws had landed as well. Kaiya's usage of the laws had reached perfection, even surpassing Jian Chen's usage of the laws of the sword. As a result, her strike that contained 3 different types of laws naturally possessed extraordinary might. However, she was still an over-god after all. The difference from the primordial realm was still too great, so the glyph condensed from the 3 laws was still unable to block Huaiyan's casual strike. Kaiya's glyph collapsed, while the huge hand continued onwards without slowing down at all. It engulfed Jian Chen and Kaiya with devastating power. Just when Jian Chen and Kaiya faced a moment of life and death, a clear thrum suddenly rang out. A huge, snow-white sword qi cut through the air, shooting over like it was teleporting. Wherever the sword qi passed by, origin energy trembled and even space ripped open, leaving behind an extremely thin, black crack. It was as if someone had drawn a line in the sky. The sword qi had directly cut through space. It must be mentioned that in the saints' world, space was extremely tough. Even battles between god kings would only make space ripple slightly. Yet, space was like a piece of paper before this strand of sword qi. It had ripped as the sword qi swept through the air. Boom! Boom! The sword qi that possessed terrifying might directly collided with the hand condensed from demonic aura. It erupted with terrifying energy shockwaves, directly flattening the mountain range, causing the ground to crack and sink. The energy shockwave was truly terrifying. Even with Jian Chen and Kaiya's strength, they struggled to endure it. The energy forced them into a constant retreat. If it were not for the fact that the energy shockwave came from a casual strike of a primordial realm expert, if it were not for the fact that the sword qi still had not dispersed after cutting through the demonic hand, blocking most of the energy for Jian Chen and Kaiya, it would be difficult for the 2 of them to emerge unscathed before the terrifying storm. They would definitely end up injured. Swish! The whistling of wind rang out once again. After dispersing the hand, the sword qi continued to shoot into the demonic cloud with shocking might. The sword qi shimmered, shining as brightly as the sun. It illuminated the sky, dyeing all the demonic, black clouds in the sky white. Humph! A cold snort rang out from the demonic clouds. Primordial realm laws descended in the demonic clouds, forming chains that flickered through the clouds like lightning, colliding with the sword qi. This collision caused another deafening boom. Just the terrifying sound alone had caused the ground to shake violently as if the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian was experiencing a great earthquake. Not only did all the rocks in the ruined mountains turn to dust, but even large portions of the ground below collapsed, turning into dark abysses. Sword immortal. Jian Chen was surprised when he sensed the power of the sword qi. The person who had produced the sword qi had reached the 3rd major realm of cultivation in the way of the sword immortal. Jian Chen subconsciously turned around and saw a dignified middle-aged man in dragon robe stride through the sky. He was clearly extremely far away, where even Jian Chen only managed to see an extremely blurry image of him. However, in the next moment, he took a single step and traversed the great distance, directly appearing before Jian Chen. He stared at the figure hidden within the demonic clouds coldly. The middle-aged man was the divine king. Huaiyan, you've overstepped the boundary. The divine king's hair fluttered in the wind as he stood before Jian Chen. He solemnly stared at Huaiyan, who was hidden in the clouds, as he gave off the presence of a ruler. The laws of the sword revolved around him. The Divine King actually comprehends the laws of the sword. Jian Shen was secretly surprised. He was taken aback. The laws of the sword were one of the laws that possessed the greatest offensive power. A primordial realm expert who had comprehended the laws of the sword would definitely possess much greater prowess than primordial realm experts who comprehended other laws. Although Jian Shen had spent some time with the Divine King, he did not know what kind of laws the Divine King had comprehended. Although the Divine King had used the power of laws in the war against the Empyrean demon cult before, they were hazy, only presented in the form of pure power. He did not clearly demonstrate the type of law they were. Only now did Jian Shen learn that the Divine King was actually an expert who comprehended the laws of the sword. The cloud plane may be big, but I can go wherever I want. How can you say I've overstepped the boundary? Huaiyan's voice rang out from within the demonic clouds. Then, he slowly emerged from them. However, he was not alone. Behind him hovered 3 figures silently. From the presences they gave off, they had all reached God King. Ping Tian, I was expecting you to appear. However, do you really think you can keep the person that I want to deal with safe with your strength that has only recently reached the primordial realm? Huaiyan sneered. Then, he said to the 3 people behind him, Go, bring me Jian Shen and that girl. Yes, sir. The 3 god kings behind Huaiyan answered together. With a single movement, they flew towards Jian Shen and Kaya. Leave. The Divine King growled at Jian Shen. He waved his arm, and the laws of the primordial realm descended. The resplendent sword chi formed a huge chain that swept towards the 3 god kings with terrifying might. A primordial realm expert strike was absolutely frightening. Even though the 3 god kings were not weak, all late god kings, they were not supreme god kings who had made it onto the god king's throne. As a result, they shivered when they faced the Divine King's casual strike. The presence of death pressed towards them as if the world was ending. Huaiyan appeared before the 3 of them as if he had teleported. He blocked the Divine King's attack with composure and said, Ping Tian, our battle last time never ended. Why don't we continue it in outer space? With that, Huaiyan directly attacked the Divine King regardless of his response. Huaiyan's strike this time was on a completely different level compared to before. Before, he had struck out leisurely, without using laws from the primordial realm. He had just condensed a hand out of demonic aura to use against Jian Shen. This was because he knew the Divine King would definitely protect Jian Shen secretly, so the strike before was only to draw him out. Huaiyan did this to prevent the Divine King from dealing a sneak attack all of a sudden. Now that the Divine King had appeared, Huaiyan was fearless. He used his full strength right from the start. The Divine King was grim. Huaiyan's attack was just too powerful. If he blocked it, the shockwaves created would result in heavy damage to the Divine Kingdom of Ping Tian. With no other choice, he could only fly up towards outer space. Huaiyan looked at the Divine King, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He also flew up, pursuing the Divine King. To another side, Jian Shen and Kaya were already fleeing as quickly as they could. The 3 god kings pursued them closely. As 2 late over gods, it was naturally impossible for them to be faster than the 2 late god kings. As a result, the distance between them shrank rapidly. Jian Shen and Kaya did not flee towards the Tian Yuan clan. Instead, they traveled away from the clan, fleeing from the Divine Kingdom. With the Tian Yuan clan's current strength, it was impossible for them to stop the 3 god kings from the Empyrean demon cult. Even the god king level formations would not be enough to stop 3 late god kings. Even if Muku was there, it would not work either. As a result, they would only bring disaster to the clan if they returned. Basically all of Jian Shen's power of the soul had been drained when he used the 2 strands of profound sword chi. He was currently ingesting the soul recovery pills he had purchased from the Xiandao Empire, so Kaya basically carried him as they fled. However, Kaya once again demonstrated something that shocked Jian Shen. She used some kind of secret technique that allowed her to fuse with the surroundings and move with unbelievable speed. The three god kings actually struggled to catch up to them over a short period of time. You can't run, so just give up obediently. Behind them, one of the god kings from the Empyrean demon cult called out. Terrifying, tremendous pressure poured from his body, and he formed a seal with his hand before suddenly extending a finger forwards. The space 10 kilometers away suddenly tremored, actually freezing up at that moment from the gesture. Jian Shen and Kaya were in the region of frozen space. Immediately, they felt a mysterious power lock down on their bodies, making it feel like they had ended up in mud. Their movements became extraordinarily slow, while their speed plummeted as well. Less than 10 kilometers separated them, so now that Jian Shen and Kaya had slowed down, the three god kings caught up instantly. They struck out at the same time, where two targeted Jian Shen while the remaining dealt with Kaya. Immediately, tremendous, terrifying energy shook up the surroundings. Even though the three late god kings were not as awe-inspiring as primordial realm experts when they unleashed their might, their strength was still shocking. Jian Shen bellowed out. He wielded the startling rainbow sword as his battle intent surged into the sky. He had already equipped the damaged armor he had taken back from the ancestor of the Mo family. The sword in his hand danced, and he produced 2 golden strands of sword chi. Even though the power of his soul still had not recovered in that short amount of time, making it impossible for him to use the profound sword chi, he was still able to put up a fight. Kaya moved on the other side as well. She was extremely grim as the power from the 3 types of laws revolved around her. As her hands danced, the 3 powers condensed into 3 swords and shot out. The God King who faced Kaya raised an eyebrow and was slightly surprised when he saw this. He murmured, These laws are slightly strange. The God King from the Empyrean demon cult had also noticed that the laws that Kaya used were slightly different. However, he did not have too much time to think about it. Their attacks collided together viciously. Spurt. Kaya puked up blood as her body was knocked away like a broken kite. The laws she used were rather different, and she had delivered a shocking attack with the 3 types of laws, but she was still just a late over god after all. The difference between her and a late god king was too great. It was so great that even the 3 laws she could use were not enough to make up for it. At the same time, from just a single clash with the 2 god kings, Jian Shen produced a bloody mist that contained most of his organs. He was also blown away like Kaya while the startling rainbow sword in his hand had dimmed. A slight crack had appeared on the guard of the sword as well, and it stretched across the entire sword. Late god kings were just too powerful. Moreover, they had struck out together as well, so even with the protection of the god artifact, Jian Shen struggled to endure it, becoming extremely injured. Most importantly, only the surface of his god artifact had been repaired. As such, although it seemed to be in perfect condition, its defenses as a god artifact could not be used at all. Blood constantly spurted out of his mouth as Jian Shen flew backwards. Every single mouthful of blood contained pieces of his organs. He was able to put up a fight and win against early god kings, but he would not be able to fight back at all against late god kings. The difference between late and early god king was just far too great. At this moment, Kaya caught up to Jian Shen with a pale face and some residual blood at the corner of her lips. She grabbed him before gritting her teeth, fleeing into the distance without any hesitation. Ha ha ha, and you still want to run? If we really do let you 2 puny overgods escape, will the 3 of us still have the face to remain in the Hall of Protectors? The 3 god kings laughed aloud behind as they looked at Kaya and Jian Shen like cats toying with their food. Jian Shen coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood as he glanced at the 3 pursuing god kings coldly. Then, he wrapped his left arm around Kaya's waist and formed a seal with his right hand, using the linear lightning release. Kaya immediately shuddered when Jian Shen wrapped his hand around her. She looked at Jian Shen with mixed emotions. In her memory, there had yet to be a man who had held her like that aside from her father. Moreover, she felt an intense repulsion towards a man touching her so closely like that. The repulsion rose up, growing stronger and stronger as if a voice constantly reminded her to resist. It had almost shaken her will, which would lead to her directly resisting Jian Chen. However, Kaya was in no position to think. She felt her body suddenly sink, and the surroundings turned into a blur instantly. The scenery around her shot past as blurry streaks of light. Jian Chen had already used the linear lightning release. He and Kaya were surrounded by light as they turned into a bolt of lightning and shot off into the distance with unbelievable speed. They were so fast that they could not be described as covering 1,000 kilometers in a split second. Instead, it was 10,000 kilometers or even several tens of thousand kilometers. The eyes of the three pursuing god kings of the Empyrean demon cult narrowed all of a sudden. Jian Chen and Kaya were so quick that it stunned them. Their speed had basically surpassed the limits of what the naked eye could see. Their movement could only be caught with the senses of the soul. Chase them. We can't let them escape. One of the god kings bellowed out and immediately used a secret technique with the other two god kings. Their speeds also skyrocketed all of a sudden, turning into three blurs as they chased. Jian Chen's linear lightning release was very fast, but the amount of time he could maintain it was far too short. They were unable to evade the senses of a god king's soul in such a short amount of time. As a result, even though Jian Chen and Kaya managed to flee to a point where the god kings were no longer able to see them, they still remained in the area the god king's senses of the soul covered. Over 100,000 kilometers away, the light around Jian Chen and Kaya slowly faded, and their terrifying speed brought on by the linear lightning release vanished. The three god kings had vanished behind them. However, they knew that they still had not shaken off the three god kings. As a matter of fact, they could even sense three extremely powerful presences rush over in the distance. They would be able to catch up in under a minute. Jian Chen, what do we do now? Kaya broke free from Jian Chen's arm without showing any repulsion and said worriedly. Go dash. Just when Jian Chen wanted to talk, he aggravated his wounds, so he experienced a violent fit of coughing. A few more mouthfuls of blood and organs spurted out from his mouth. Even though he had only clashed once with the two god kings, his opponents were late god kings after all. Jian Chen suffered severe wounds from that. If it were not for his chaotic body, he would have collapsed long ago. Jian Chen, how are you? You better heal first. I'll carry you, Kaya said in concern. Jian Chen shook his head. He silently circulated his chaotic force to heal as he wolfed down a handful of healing pills and several soul recovery pills. Only then did he say with great difficulty and weakness, "You're not as fast as them. Right now, the only way we can travel is for me to use my sword technique. Only then do we have a chance at escaping. As long as we make it to the divine kingdom of Qingyang, we can shake them off. Let's go." Jian Chen wrapped his left hand around Kaya once again while he formed a seal with his right hand, continuing to cast the linear lightning release. Faced with such desperate times, he could no longer care about the bodily contact between men and women. Escaping from the three god kings was more important than anything. Kaya's feelings became extremely mixed. She would experience severe repulsion when Jian Chen touched her like that. However, when she thought about the danger the two of them faced today, she could only suppress this repulsion helplessly. Swish. As Kaya experienced mixed feelings, she and Jian Chen became surrounded with light once again. They shot off into the distance with lightning speed, covering several tens of thousand kilometers in a split second. They truly moved extremely quickly. With their speed, even late god kings would struggle to catch up. Even though the three god kings had already used secret techniques, they were still unable to traverse several tens of thousand kilometers in a split second. However, Jian Chen's linear lightning release was not perfect either. He was unable to maintain it for long, unlike the three god kings behind them who could maintain their greatest speed over prolonged periods. As a result, every time Jian Chen stopped after using the linear lightning release, the distance he had created from the god kings would be covered once again. This forced Jian Chen to use the linear lightning release constantly. Fortunately, his chaotic force was consumed extremely slowly. Moreover, he had never run out of energy during a battle due to it being overly drawn out after he began cultivating the chaotic body. Otherwise, he would probably run out of energy from just using the linear lightning release repeatedly as a late-over god. The earth stretched into the distance, and the rivers and mountains rapidly receded. As the two parties fled and pursued, they left the divine kingdom of Pingtian very soon, entering the boundary of the divine kingdom of Qingyang. As they fled, Jian Chen's wounds rapidly recovered thanks to the terrifying automatic regeneration of the chaotic body. Even though he devoted all his efforts to fleeing, his wounds did not worsen at all. Thank God for it, or it would have been almost impossible to escape from the three god kings. Kaya patted her chest within the gloomy cave as she said in lingering fear. She looked at Jian Chen and asked, "Jian Chen, where are we right now? We should have escaped from the three god kings, right?" Jian Chen remained grim. He shook his head in response to Kaya and said, "We're currently in the divine kingdom of Dadian. Although it's extremely distant from the divine kingdom of Qingyang, they're god kings after all and late god kings at that. Their senses of the soul are so powerful that they can engulf an entire divine kingdom without any effort. As a result, we still haven't escaped from the range of their senses with where we are right now." However, when Jian Chen finished talking, their faces both changed. At that moment, they could clearly sense extremely powerful senses of the soul sweep over. Just the pressure from the senses made them feel like they bore mountains on their backs. "They've already found us. Let's keep teleporting. I'd like to see if the senses of late god kings can extend from the divine kingdom of Qingyang to the heavenly moon empire," Jian Chen said coldly. He pulled Kaya into the teleportation formation and activated it again, leaving the cave. Like before, Jian Chen destroyed the teleportation in the divine kingdom of Datian when they left to prevent the three god kings from using it. As a result, the three god kings could only slowly fly their way to the heavenly moon empire if they wanted to catch them. Although god kings flew extremely quickly, where it would not take them very long at all to make it to the heavenly moon empire, this was extremely valuable time to Jian Chen. The divine king was still engaged in an intense battle against Huayan in outer space. Sword Qi crisscrossed the space with surprising sword intent. Each strand of sword Qi was blinding, shooting off like galaxies with devastating power. The divine king was still engaged in an intense battle against Huayan in outer space. Sword Qi crisscrossed the space with surprising sword intent. Each strand of sword Qi was blinding, shooting off like galaxies with devastating power. The divine king was a primordial realm expert, and his laws of the sword had reached sword immortal. Sword Qi permeated his surroundings, revolving around him like countless illusionary swords. Right now, he seemed like an immortal of the sword. It was like he possesses a certain ethereal lightness. On the other side, Huayan churned with demonic aura. His laws of darkness swallowed all light, causing the celestial bodies to dim. It clashed time and time again with the divine king's laws of the sword. The two of them seemed to be locked in an extremely intense battle, but they did not try to claim each other's lives in reality. However, even with that being the case, the battle was still devastating. It caused space to distort and turned it into a mess. They kept each other busy so that neither of them would have the energy to worry about Jian Chen. The divine king had already reached the limits of what he could do. He was no longer able to do anything about the three god kings who chased Jian Chen. Right now, the heritage of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was simply far too shallow. Even though they possessed a primordial realm expert, they only possessed a single god king, the Grand Imperial Protector. Moreover, the Grand Imperial Protector was only an early god king. He was completely useless to the dangers that Jian Chen faced. Through the teleportation formation, Jian Chen had successfully arrived in the Heavenly Moon Empire now. After destroying the teleportation formation in the Heavenly Moon Empire, he and Kaya shot towards the imperial capital with lightning speed. Along the way, Jian Chen swallowed a few more healing pills. Coupled with the regeneration of his chaotic body, he recovered as quickly as possible. Kaya also wolfed down pills to heal as she fled as quickly as she could with Jianchen. Jianchen, where are we going next? Kaya asked. After coming to the Saint's world, this was the first time she had left the Dong'an province. Moreover, 3 experts were hunting her down, so she completely had no idea because she was unfamiliar with the Saint's world. After some thought, Jianchen replied, the Empyrean demon cult has their eyes on us now. We definitely can't return to the Tianyuan clan, so we can only flee to further places so that we can completely shake them off. Our greatest enemy is not the 3 god kings, but one of the 3 vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult, Huayan. Although Huayan is busy with the divine king, that won't last for too long. As a result, we need to find a way to escape from Huayan. With that, the light in Jianchen's eyes flickered. He furrowed his brows in thought for a while before making up his mind. He said, let's go to the Blood Sun Empire. Before long, Jianchen and Kaya arrived in the imperial capital of the Heavenly Moon Empire. Without even spending a second longer there than necessary, they paid quite a hefty price and were teleported away to the Blood Sun Empire. The Blood Sun Empire was the ruler of the southern region. Their status was supreme, and their authority in the southern region was equivalent to the Shi Empire's authority in the northern region. They were the ultimate existence. Currently, Huayan targeted Jianchen, so if there were any places that a primordial realm expert like Huayan would fear, there would only be the eternal Blood Sun Empire. At the same time, in the imperial palace of the Shi Empire, a beautiful but troubled woman who seemed to be in her 20s sat within a pavilion in the imperial gardens. She stared at the embroidered box she had placed on the stone table there and sighed constantly. This woman was Princess Tian of the Shi Empire. Sigh, it has already been so long, and I've yet to complete Jianchen's request. What do I do? Princess Tian murmured. She stared at the box on the table remotely as worry filled her face. It's all my fault. I didn't think too much of it when I agreed to Jianchen's request. I thought it would be a piece of cake, where I could complete it easily. I never thought it would actually be so difficult now that I've tried it. I probably can't even take out the box in front of Aunt with her temperament, while I've never found a chance to give it to Uncle. The princess supported her chin with her hands as she sat in the garden, sighing powerlessly. Now, the box had basically become something that burdened her heart. After all, she had agreed to Jianchen's request in the past. If she did not give the box to the Empress or the Emperor, she would not be able to find any ease. Sister Tian, what are you doing here all by yourself? And why are you staring at this box in a daze? What's in the box? At this moment, a rather mischievous giggle rang out from behind the princess. An eccentric girl who seemed to be 15 or 16 years in age stood behind Princess Tian in imperial robes. She smiled faintly, and her bright eyes moved about, filled with energy and mischief. Then, she arrived on the other side of the stone table in a flash and picked up the box. She giggled, Sister Tian, is the item in here a gift for Binger? Binger is rather eager to see what it is. As she said that, the girl called Binger opened the box without any hesitation at all. Binger, do not. That belongs to someone else, Princess Tian spoke out, but she was already too late to stop her. Binger had already opened the box. There were no priceless treasures within the box. It only held an extremely simple jade pendant. Binger was surprised as she looked at the object in the box. Her curiosity instantly turned into great disappointment. She picked up the jade pendant and glanced at it very casually before pouting. What is this? Why is such a simple jade pendant stored in such a great box? So much for getting me to think that it was something good. Binger, don't you know how to behave? Princess Tian frowned and lectured Binger unhappily. Even though she was stern, there was a sliver of adoration for Binger in her eyes. As she said that, Princess Tian snatched the jade pendant from Binger's hand. She could not help but study it herself. She had always been extremely curious about what the box held as well. After all, Jianchen had stressed that it was a gift she had to give to the Empress or the Emperor personally. Evidently, the item inside would be extremely important. However, when Princess Tian looked at the jade pendant in her hand, she felt extremely doubtful and confused. She could tell that the jade pendant was nothing precious. It was made from extremely simple materials, and it would not raise any attention if it was just laid down somewhere in the imperial palace. The only thing that did catch some attention was the extremely exquisite and beautiful patterning on the jade pendant. However, the two words, Shiyu, carved on there perplexed the princess slightly. So this is the item that Jian Chen needed me to give to uncle or aunt personally? Princess Tian became covered in cold sweat from shock. At that moment, she felt extremely fortunate that Bing'er had opened the box, allowing her to know what it held. Otherwise, it would have been humiliating if she had really given such a simple jade pendant to her aunt or uncle. Even if her aunt or uncle did not take offense, she would be completely embarrassed. Siener. At this moment, a somewhat dignified voice rang out. The graceful empress appeared within the imperial gardens and slowly made her way towards Princess Tian. Ah! Aunt! Princess Tian was taken aback. She turned around to glance at the empress, who slowly made her way over before she thought about the open box on the stone table. Immediately, she felt rather flustered. However, she seemed to fail to realize that the jade pendant from the box was still in her hand. Bing'er greets the empress. The girl called Bing'er stopped acting mischievously and bowed towards the empress politely. Before the empress, she was unable to behave as naturally as Princess Tian. She was extremely nervous. The empress looked at Princess Tian gently. Just when she was about to say something, she suddenly saw the jade pendant in the princess' hand. The empress abruptly quivered, and her face changed all of a sudden as well. Her beautiful, phoenix-like eyes seemed to freeze up as they became fixed on the jade pendant in Princess Tian's hands. In the next moment, the empress moved slightly and appeared before Princess Tian like she had teleported. Before the princess could return to her senses, the empress had grabbed the jade pendant from the princess' hand and studied it carefully. In the next moment, the empress moved slightly and appeared before Princess Tian like she had teleported. Before the princess could return to her senses, the empress had grabbed the jade pendant from the princess' hand and studied it carefully. Even though the pendant was made from something extremely simple, the exquisite carvings on it made the empress' cold heart beat heavily. In particular, when she saw the two words, Shiyu, engraved on the pendant, her hand that held it began to shake involuntarily. She could not be more familiar with the pendant. As a matter of fact, the appearance of the pendant, the exquisite carvings and the engraved words, had already formed a brand that was stamped deeply into her soul. She would never forget it in her life. This was because when she and Shi Ziyun had been hunted down by enemies and were forced to abandon their daughter, they had left a jade pendant exactly like this one with her. They did this so that they would be able to identify her in the future. Even though the material was different, everything else was the same as the pendant she had left behind in the past. It was exactly the same. Siener, where did you get this jade pendant? Tears shone in the empress' eyes as her trembling voice was filled with urgency. There was raw excitement in there that anyone could detect. In that moment, the empress' immovable heart seemed to explode like a volcano. Her feelings churned violently as she struggled to remain calm. For all these years, she and the Shi Emperor had been deeply concerned, basically thinking about their daughter at all times. They had even sent people to search for her secretly during these 2 millennia, but they received no news at all. As time went on, their missing daughter basically turned into anxiety for the couple, making them experience eternal pain. This was because they had failed to find any leads in these 2,000 years. In a brutal world where power was everything, the two of them had no idea whether their daughter was still alive or not. However, now that the empress, who had almost become despaired, suddenly saw a jade pendant similar to the one she had left with her daughter, the flames of hope were reignited. She had suddenly found a lead regarding the daughter she had lost for 2,000 years. This great surprise left the empress overjoyed. Princess Tian stared at her emotional aunt in a daze. She felt very confused. She simply could not understand how a simple jade pendant could make her cold aunt react with such intensity. As for Binger, she had become completely stunned. She stared at the Empress blankly as shock filled her face. In that moment, she even began to suspect that the Empress she saw was an impostor. This was because in her memory, the Empress was cold and proud, making her unapproachable. She would treat everyone icily, and she would only be amiable when she saw Sister Tian. Yet now, she actually saw tears in the Empress' eyes and joy on the Empress' face. This was very unbelievable for Binger. Even though Princess Tian was very confused, she still asked, "Aunt, do you remember the Supreme Overgod I mentioned to you before? That Supreme Overgod gave me the box, and he got me to deliver it to you or Uncle personally. The jade pendant was the only thing in the box." What? The jade pendant was actually the item in the box? Regret filled the Empress' face. Naturally, she could remember the matter with the box. Originally, she did not care about the gift of an overgod at all, but she had never thought that the item inside would connect her to the daughter she had lost over 2,000 years ago. "No, I have to tell Ziyun something this important." The Empress vanished, leaving behind the confused Princess Tian and Binger standing in the garden. In a majestic courtroom, the Shi Emperor in dragon robes currently sat on the Emperor's throne as he managed the affairs of the empire. Below him stood many subjects and officials. They all showed respect. "Ziyun, Ziyun," at this moment, the Empress' voice rang out. She held the jade pendant in her hand as she shot over as a blur, attracting the attention of all the officials. "Xianer, why are you so flustered?" The Shi Emperor looked at the Empress in confusion from his throne. "Ziyun, look," the Empress directly passed the pendant to the Emperor after arriving before him. When the Shi Emperor saw the jade pendant, his eyes suddenly narrowed. He shot up from his throne as his terrifying presence erupted from his body without control. Like a turbulent wave, it wreaked havoc in the courtroom, forcing back all the officials and subjects. Where did this jade pendant come from? The Shi Emperor asked in both an excited and trembling voice. He was the mighty Shi Emperor, yet he struggled to control his emotions at this moment. The Empress explained the origins of the jade pendant in a few short sentences. "Let's go. Let's go see Xianer." After learning where the jade pendant came from, the Shi Emperor was even more hurried than the Empress. He did not even bother to conclude the meeting of officials and directly disappeared from the courtroom with the Empress, leaving behind the officials to look at one another. Princess Tian and Binger remained stunned in the imperial gardens. Clearly, they still had not returned to their senses. At this moment, there was a flash, and the dignified Shi Emperor and the Empress appeared beside Princess Tian like they had teleported. "Xianer, where is the Jian Shen who gave you the jade pendant?" The Shi Emperor asked directly. His face was filled with a sense of urgency. "Ah, uncle." Only now did the princess return to her senses. She looked at the Shi Emperor that had suddenly appeared before her and was stunned once again. However, she responded very quickly, "Uncle, aunt, when Jian Shen gave me the jade talisman, he was still in the Xiandao Empire. I am uncertain as to where he is right now. Let's go to the Xiandao Empire." The Shi Emperor moved swiftly, immediately leaving the Shi Empire with Princess Tian and the Empress to go to the Xiandao Empire. The Shi Emperor's group was naturally fairly impressive since he was leaving the empire. 2 primordial realm subjects followed him along. After finding a lead on his daughter, the Shi Emperor was clearly nervous from worry. He had gone as far as to move personally, using his supreme cultivation as a chaotic prime to hurry everyone along. He basically tread through worlds, where they would flash past with each step. In just 5 or 6 steps, he had covered a tremendous distance and directly arrived above the imperial capital of the Xiandao Empire. The personal arrival of the Shi Emperor shocked the entire Xiandao Empire. All the primordial realm experts in the empire emerged from seclusion, welcoming him politely. Aside from Tian Shuang, there were 2 ruddy old men among the primordial realm experts of the Xiandao Empire. They currently bowed towards the Shi Emperor as they felt uneasy inside. In the past few years, the Shi Emperor had made a name for himself from all the killing he did, so the Shi Emperor's arrival had unsettled the three primordial realm experts. They all recalled the past to see whether they had actually taken part in the hunt or not. Is Jian Chen in your Xiandao Empire? However, to the three primordial realm experts' surprise, the Shi Emperor asked for a person called Jian Chen right from the start. The two ruddy old men became doubtful when they heard the name. A gleam of light flickered through Tian Shuang's eyes, and she said after some thought, Shi Emperor, Jian Chen has already left our Xiandao Empire. If I recall correctly, he should be in a place called the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian in the southern region. The southern region, the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, the Shi Emperor murmured before clasping his hands at Tian Shuang in gratitude. Immediately, he set off for the southern region with everyone. The Shi Emperor did not take a teleportation formation. With his cultivation as a chaotic prime, he would even be faster than a teleportation formation if he moved through the cloud plane by himself. Several figures flew through the sky with lightning speed above the Dong'an province of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, directly flying into the provincial city and stopping above the Tian Yuan clan. The person at the front seemed to be in his 40s. He wore violet and gold robes, and he seemed rather dignified. He looked at the Tian Yuan clan from above coldly. This middle-aged man was the 9th prince of the Eternal Blood Sun Empire. According to the information the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect provided, he had directly come to the Tian Yuan clan. 9th prince, the Tian Yuan clan is only a small clan. Are they really connected to the loss of the Flower of Ways? A god king asked carefully from behind the 9th prince. The 9th prince hovered in the air and stared at the Tian Yuan clan emotionlessly. He said, the person from the Earth Spirit sect told me anonymously through the jade slip that several decades ago, Jian Chen assisted the soul of a primordial realm expert to obtain a few things Duanmu left behind in his dwelling, which also allowed her to recover her body. At that time, the primordial realm expert was only an over-god after recovering her body. And recently, Jian Chen caught the eyes of the commander of the 7th Army from the Empyrean demon cult, Yashi Lian. A primordial realm expert saved him in the end, and even Yashi Lian was captured. It's extremely likely that this primordial realm expert is the one who had recovered her body under Jian Chen's help in God King Duanmu's dwelling. The 9th prince stood with his arms crossed and said slowly, even if a soul that has newly forged a body was once a primordial realm expert, it's impossible for them to recover so rapidly, unless they use extremely precious heavenly resources. The Flower of Ways just happens to be an extremely precious heavenly resource. As a result, I can basically conclude that the person who stole the Flower of Ways is the primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen. With that, the 9th prince's face darkened and killing intent appeared in his eyes. He had already realized that the Flower of Ways had probably already been ingested, but he needed to make someone pay. This was because without the Flower of Ways, it would take him forever to reach the primordial realm. Even with his extraordinary talent, overcoming the bottleneck between godhood and the primordial realm was still difficult. The 9th prince became more furious the more he thought about it. In the end, it transformed into raging killing intent, and he directly hurled a punch at the Tian Yuan clan. Boom! The entire provincial city rumbled loudly, and the God King level formation that had been recently cast down over the Tian Yuan clan completely collapsed from the 9th prince's punch. The formation was only enough to stop attacks from early God Kings, while the 9th prince had already reached the peak of God King. He was preparing to break through to the primordial realm. It was impossible for the formation to stop him. With the destruction of the formation, the Tian Yuan clan was clearly exposed. With the destruction of the formation, the Tian Yuan clan was clearly exposed. However, the Tian Yuan clan was no longer in perfect condition. The 9th prince's attack was simply too powerful. Not only did it destroy the formation, but the powerful shockwaves of energy had also destroyed a third of the clan. It was a mess as far as the eye could see. If it were not for the protective formation that blocked most of the 9th prince's attack, probably the entire Tian Yuan clan would have been devastated by the 9th prince. However, even with that being the case, many of the weaker servants and guards in the Tian Yuan clan were affected by the shockwave and became heavily injured. The sudden occurrence had thrown the entire Tian Yuan clan into a mess. Many people ran about frantically. They all paled when they saw how the God King level formation had already collapsed. Shiyu, Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the other elders currently gathered together as they stared at the sky sternly. Even Sacred Feather, Roy Jin, Hong Lian, Hei Yu, and the people from the world of Forsaken Saints emerged from the Forbidden Grounds. Seeing the ruined formations in the surroundings, they became extremely grim. They all knew that the protective formation around the Tian Yuan clan was at the level of God Kings. There was both a trapping and killing formation there, so in the divine kingdom of Ping Tian, it could be regarded as extremely powerful. Yet, when they saw the tough formation shatter without any prior signs, they realized just how powerful the offender was. May I ask how our Tian Yuan clan has offended the seniors, where the seniors have to shatter our protective formation? Shiyu said coldly from the Tian Yuan clan as she stared at the 9th Prince's group. Sacred Feather arrived beside Shiyu as well. He stared at the people in the sky emotionlessly as a vicious light shone through his sharp gaze. The other elders of the Tian Yuan clan stood behind Shiyu and Sacred Feather. They were the only two overgods left in the Tian Yuan clan now. The face of a God King behind the 9th Prince immediately sank when he heard Shiyu's cold questioning. He called out, "How dare you? Do you know who you're talking to? This is the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Why don't you kneel in greeting now that the 9th Prince is here?" The expressions of all the people in the Tian Yuan clan changed when they heard that. They could not help but look at each other. Many of them felt doubtful. They had no idea when the Tian Yuan clan had offended the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Shiyu's heart sank all of a sudden. The 9th Prince had come with ill intentions, which made her feel that something bad was going to happen. Offending the Blood Sun Empire would result in consequences that were even worse than offending the Empyrean demon cult. The Blood Sun Empire was the ruler of the southern region, possessing a supreme status there. Before it, even the ancient empires with rich heritages like the Heavenly Moon Empire had to behave submissively. "Which one of you is Patriarch Jian Chen?" the 9th Prince asked with a sunken face. His voice was icy cold. "Your Highness, very unfortunately, the Patriarch is not in the clan right now," Shiyu responded emotionlessly with a clasped fist. "Not here?" A vicious light flickered through the 9th Prince's eyes. Just when he wanted to say something, his face changed suddenly, and his eyes instantly became filled with heavy, cold killing intent. Raising his hand, terrifying energy gathered, instantly condensing into a huge hand that fell onto the forbidden grounds of the Tian Yuan clan. Boom! The ground shook violently. The 9th Prince had directly used his energy hand to wrench out a secret room hidden beneath the forbidden grounds. The tough room shattered in the 9th Prince's hands. This room was where newbies cultivated in seclusion. With the secret room destroyed, newbies naturally fell out. At the same time, a golden-striped silver snake that was several thousand meters in length but only as thick as a wrist appeared as well. The golden-striped silver snake had lost all its presence of life, and most of its vital essence was gone as well. Consequently, it appeared to be slightly shriveled now. When the God Kings who had come with the 9th Prince saw the corpse of the snake, their faces all changed. Killing intent surged from all of them uncontrollably. No wonder we couldn't find Jean Mang's corpse in the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. You've brought him here. The loss of the Flower of Ways is indeed related to your Tian Yuan clan. The Tian Yuan clan sure is bold to even eye the items of the 9th Prince. Such crimes are so great that even destroying the entire clan won't be enough. The God Kings behind the 9th Prince all spoke out coldly as they gave off killing intent. They were tempted to destroy the Tian Yuan clan instantly. As for the 9th Prince, his face became extremely sunken when he stared at the corpse of the golden-striped silver snake. He had already become furious as killing intent built up inside. If he doubted Jian Chen a little before, he was extremely confident about his guess now that he had seen the corpse of the snake. Nubis stood up from the ground in a disheveled manner. He was slightly confused, but soon afterwards, he heard the furious shouts of the God Kings, allowing him to understand what had happened. His face immediately became ugly. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure appeared. A God King behind the 9th prince arrived before Nubis instantly and gripped his throat tightly. The light in the God King's eyes shone viciously as killing intent surged. He said frigidly, "How dare you absorb Jean Mang's essence? Jean Mang serves the 9th prince, yet you've treated his corpse like this. I will let you come begging to me for death." As he said that, the God King's hand clamped down. With a crisp crack, Nubis' neck was reduced to pieces. Even though Nubis had risen from being a god to early over god after absorbing some of the essence from Jean Mang, he was still extremely puny before a God King. He was unable to put up any resistance at all. Afterwards, the God King grabbed the top of Nubis' head in an attempt to forcefully draw his soul from his body. Nubis' eyes dilated. He watched the God King's hand approach him as regret filled his eyes. He resisted with his full strength, but due to the huge difference in strength, it was a futile effort. "Will I, the great Nubis, die just like this? No, I refuse. I refuse. I've only just come to the Saints' world. I've yet to see all the scenery the Saints' world has to offer. I still haven't reached the limit of my cultivation path," Nubis roared out inside. Before the threat of life and death, his instincts for survival stimulated all his potential. At that moment, the blood in his body flowed hundreds of times faster than usual. On his face, his arms, and every inch of his body, the blood vessels that were hidden underneath his skin bulged as a faint golden light flowed in there. At this moment, Nubis could clearly feel the power of his bloodline rapidly strengthen, making him feel like energy surged through his entire body. However, it was still not enough to change the situation. Even after his bloodline had strengthened, and his battle prowess had increased, it was still not enough for him to escape from a God King. After all, he was only an early over god right now. However, at that moment, Sacred Feather struck out. He instantly reverted to his original form, and a huge, white tiger hovered in the sky. It possessed 2 wings and was glorious. Extremely strong killing intent condensed on Sacred Feather, along with the force of slaughter. He raised his 2 wings high, and they fused into a blade. It slashed out with the killing intent from Sacred Feather. Extremely strong killing intent condensed on Sacred Feather, along with the force of slaughter. He raised his 2 wings high, and they fused into a blade. It slashed out with the killing intent from Sacred Feather. Sacred Feather struck out with his full strength against the God King. All his strength surged out without holding back anything. His presence was overwhelming. Even though he was only an early over god, he was a Sacred Feather Tiger Emperor. His bloodline was extremely powerful. Coupled with the way of slaughter he had comprehended, his strike was extremely powerful. It had surpassed the amount of strength he should have been able to use right now. The God King who grabbed Nubis by the neck and was just about to wrench out his soul in a brutal method sneered disdainfully when he sensed Sacred Feather's attack. He scorned, "An ant dares to stand up against a tiger? Die." With that, the God King's hand that had originally reached towards Nubis' head suddenly extended towards Sacred Feather's wings. Sacred Feather had condensed all his power into his wings. The power of the ways of slaughter had been condensed there as well. However, when his full-powered attack came in contact with the God King's hand, it was gripped tightly. The power within was unable to harm his opponent at all. It's actually the ways of slaughter. Impressive, the laws you've comprehended are very powerful. Unfortunately, your cultivation is just too weak, the God King said coldly. He looked at Sacred Feather coldly, and his hand tremored. An energy that was devastating to over-gods struck Sacred Feather mercilessly. A bloody mist spurted out from Sacred Feather's mouth as he was knocked away powerlessly. His wings constantly cracked as white feathers floated in the sky. Sacred Feather's wings collapsed powerlessly. Not only did they turn red from the blood, but even his body had been dyed red. A God King's strike was powerful. Although Sacred Feather's bloodline was powerful, it was unable to make up for the huge difference in strength between an over-god and a God King. Just a single attack had rendered him heavily injured. Sacred Feather. Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu all called out. They arrived before Sacred Feather with a single step. Worry filled their faces as they immediately fed healing pills to Sacred Feather. Has His Highness allowed you to save him? A God King behind the 9th prince said coldly. He gently closed his hand, and the space around the three of them immediately froze up. This God King had comprehended the laws of space. He could trap a whole region of space with a single thought. Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu were all immobilized. Before a God King who had comprehended the laws of space, they did not even have the power to blink. A pained grunt rang out. The God King who held Nubis by the neck had already pressed his right hand onto Nubis' head. His face was extremely vicious as he formed a claw with his fingers. They had already dug into Nubis' skin, slowly penetrating his skull. Blood that shone with golden light flowed from the top of Nubis' head, dripping down his face. The God King's hand slowly approached Nubis' soul. Even though Nubis' bloodline had evolved and strengthened through his great unwillingness to die, it could only become as powerful as the bloodline of Sacred Feather Tiger Emperors at most. Even Sacred Feather was unable to withstand a single attack from a God King, let alone him. Even though the people in the Tian Yuan clan were furious when they saw Nubis' situation, they really did not have anything that they could use to fend off a God King. At that moment, helplessness filled all of them. This made Shiyu absolutely furious. Rage filled her inside. Just as the God King was about to touch Nubis' soul, resolution suddenly appeared in her eyes. She ignored her personal safety and struck out fearlessly with determination. Jian Shen had granted her a fortune out of kindness. Now that the Tian Yuan clan faced a disaster and the life of Jian Chen's friend, Nubis, was in danger, she could not just stand by and watch this tragedy unfold as if she was unconcerned about the matter. Shiyu wielded a sword that shone beautifully. She fused with it and slashed at the arm of the God King. The Tian Yuan clan sure has quite a few people who overestimate themselves, the God King who held Nubis sneered. He turned around to look at Shiyu and blew out a mouthful of air. Whoosh! With that, a huge gale immediately appeared. Terrifying energy surged out from the God King's mouth, striking Shiyu with terrifying might. Shiyu came to a halt, but that was not all. Before the storm of energy, she could not help but retreat. Tell me, where is Jian Shen? If you don't, I'll kill the four of them first, the God King who controlled the laws of space said coldly. As his hand gradually tightened, the space around Rui Jin and the others creaked audibly. Under the God King's control, the space there had visibly compressed. Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu, who were trapped in the space there, were compressed as well. Their clothes pressed tightly against their bodies as they resisted the compression. The pressure from all directions had made their bodies shrink visibly. Under the tremendous pressure, blood oozed from the pores of their bodies, dyeing their clothes red. If this continued, the three of them would burst to death. However, the three of them were unable to do anything about it. No, it shouldn't just be the four of them. It should include these people as well, the God King who controlled the laws of space said inattentively. He gently extended a hand towards the upper echelon of the Tian Yuan clan. Instantly, the space behind Shiyu froze as well. All the important members of the Tian Yuan clan had been trapped in space. Among them included the ancestor of the previous Mo clan, Mo Ling, Shiyu's foster father, and even Mo Yen. The entire Tian Yuan clan had become speechless. The arrival of the 9th prince and his people were like the shade of death, looming over the clan. Arg! Shiyu's body trembled at this sight. Suddenly, she bellowed out, and flames expanded from her body. The flames did not give off any heat, but with the appearance of them, her presence actually skyrocketed. It surpassed early Overgod very soon and reached a higher level. However, even though Shiyu's presence rose, and she had become stronger, her vitality weakened at a visible rate. Her long, black hair paled rapidly, becoming gray, and then snow-white. The situation of the Tianyuan clan had stimulated Shiyu greatly, to the point where she would even go as far as to burn her own life and soul for greater strength. Currently, flames burned around Shiyu as her snow-white hair danced. She gave off an extremely terrifying presence. Chapter 1978, The She-Emperor's Daughter, 1. Shiyu looked at the ninth prince with unconcealable rage and resentment. The ninth prince had brought on all of the disasters that the Tianyuan clan faced today. Ninth prince, I want to kill you. Shiyu roared out furiously. She fused with her sword and stabbed at the ninth prince as hard as she could with the power she had gained from burning her vitality. The sword shone, illuminated the entire city. The attack was like a comet through the sky, shining with great resplendence. It bore the color of life burning away as it moved out like it was unstoppable. It possessed Shiyu's determination to kill. Seeing how Shiyu attacked the ninth prince, the god kings who had come with the ninth prince were all slightly stunned before revealing strange smiles. Scorn and disdain filled their smiles. The ninth prince was not like those wastrels from other large organizations, who only relied on their statuses to have their way, while their own strength was weak. He was not the type to put on a strong front to hide his weakness. In reality, the ninth prince was the most powerful and most terrifying person among them. He had reached the peak of God King and was already making preparations for his breakthrough to the primordial realm. Before an expert like that, even if a God King burned their life and soul, they would not be able to injure him, let alone a puny overgod. The ninth prince looked at Shiyu coldly as if he was a great lord looking at an ant. He did not make any unnecessary actions in response to the strike that Shiyu had put her life into. He only waved his hand gently like it was nothing, remaining composed. Immediately, the surroundings changed. The ninth prince's seemingly unserious movement possessed overwhelming power. At that moment, he was like the ruler of the world, where he could destroy the entire place with a simple raise of his hand. Before Shiyu could even approach the ninth prince, she sensed an irresistible force surge over. Before it, she felt like she was a tiny boat in the great ocean, so insignificant and fragile. Crack! The sword in Shiyu's hand directly shattered and it came in contact with the force from the ninth prince. It turned into countless shards as a terrifying force passed through her arm, ramming into her body heavily. Spurt! Shiyu puked out a mouthful of blood and organs that sprayed into the sky. It dyed the entire place red. Shiyu was blown away like a broken kite. As she was knocked back, her right hand that held her sword had already turned into a bloody mess, where even her bones had turned to dust. Afterwards, her entire right arm actually fell apart rapidly in the air. It vanished bit by bit. A short while later, Shiyu's right arm had completely vanished, only leaving a bloody pile behind. Shiyu was knocked very far away. She only struck the ground heavily after slamming into the spatial barrier that trapped the important members of the Tianyuan clan. Blood constantly spurted from her mouth. Her presence completely dipped at that moment. It withered away. She was now at death's door. Behind her, the hair on Shiyu's foster father, Mo Xingfeng, had already become snow-white. He stared at Shiyu, who had collapsed on the ground, as his eyes were completely bloodshot. They were filled with grief. Although Shiyu was not his true daughter, he had still raised her from a young age after all. They were so close that they were like true father and daughter. However, the God King who used the laws of space had completely trapped him there, utterly immobilized. There was nothing he could do at this moment. A pained voice rang out, and Nubi's skull had already been punctured. The God King had forcefully extracted his soul. At the same time, the spatial compression around Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu had already reached their limits. They bled from all their facial orifices while the bones across their bodies cracked audibly. Only Sacred Feather continued to endure the pressure painfully. The three of them gritted their teeth and endured with their great willpower. They used all their strength to summon the origin energy armor they had brought up from the lower world. However, it was still useless. The armor instantly became covered with cracks under the compression of space before shattering into pieces. The ninth prince watched this happen coldly. He said, "I'll give you 3 seconds. Contact your patriarch and tell him to return, or tell me who the primordial realm expert behind Jian Chen is and where she is. I can give you a quick death if you do that." Or, the ninth prince glanced across the people of the Tian Yuan clan coldly, and he said with killing intent, "I'll make you come begging for death." Shiyu raised her head and stared at the ninth prince in resentment. She said weakly, "If you want to kill us, then kill us. We will never contact the patriarch. However, I can guarantee you that if you destroy our Tian Yuan clan, our patriarch will destroy your entire empire in revenge in the future." Shiyu spoke stubbornly, choosing to die rather than to yield. The ninth prince's gaze turned cold. He extended a hand and brought Shiyu over. He gripped her neck as he held her in the air and said, "You sure have some pride. However, there are always times where the prouder a person is, the more miserable their outcome is." The ninth prince glanced behind him and said, "Mo Yen, aren't you the most skilled in methods of harvesting yin to replenish your yang? I'll grant this woman to you right now. Treat her well." With that, the ninth prince directly tossed Shiyu over. Behind the ninth prince, there were still 2 other god kings who did not take part in the battle. When they saw the ninth prince toss Shiyu over, a nefarious light immediately flickered through the eyes of one of them. He picked up Shiyu with his arms, and he snickered, "Your Highness is wise. To kill such a beautiful woman would be quite a pity. I'll follow your Highness' orders and treat this woman well." Don't you dare." Shiyu's face changed when she heard their conversation. Determination filled her eyes as she wanted to blow herself up. However, Mo Yen only pointed at Shiyu gently and sealed up all her cultivation, severing her thoughts of blowing herself up. Then, he sniggered, "Little beauty, you can't die so soon. You've cultivated for all these years, but you must not have enjoyed the feeling of being loved by a man, right? But don't worry, it'll happen very soon. You'll understand the joys of being loved by a man. You'll never forget the lovely feeling. Ha 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 ha." With that, Mo Yen began to gently strip away Shiyu's bloodied clothes before everyone. He did not move quickly. Instead, it was extremely slow. The nefarious light in his eyes shone brighter and brighter. This sight utterly enraged all the people of the Tian Yuan clan. However, they were all powerless against the ninth prince and his god kings. They could not even protect themselves. However, the space 1,000 meters above the Tian Yuan clan suddenly rippled like water. With the rippling, a few people appeared in the empty space. Chapter 1979, The She Emperor's Daughter, 2. At the very front of the group was a middle-aged man. He wore dragon robes while his resolute face gave off an undeniable sense of dignity. Even though his presence was completely concealed, he seemed to be treading on top of the world as he appeared. Behind the middle-aged man were 2 women. One seemed to be in her 30s. She was graceful and charming, and she also possessed a sense of dignity. However, worry and excitement filled her face. The other woman only seemed to be in her 20s. She was beautiful and gave off a noble presence as if she led a luxurious life. People could tell that she possessed an extraordinary birth with just a single glance. Behind them were 2 ruddy old men. They concealed their presences such that no one was able to sense their existence, much less see through their cultivation. The group consisted of the She Emperor and the others who had hurried over a tremendous distance from the northern region. As soon as they arrived in the air above the Tian Yuan clan, the She Emperor and the Empress looked down. Although many people had gathered in the Tian Yuan clan today, both of them were primordial realm experts, and the She Emperor had even reached chaotic prime. As a result, as soon as they arrived, there was a calling of their bloodline that clearly appeared in their hearts. The couple's feelings surged from the calling, and following it, their eyes locked onto Shiyu. However, when they saw what was happening, the couple became utterly enraged. Their eyes became extremely bloodshot at that moment, and killing intent erupted like a tsunami. The world darkened as the sun in the sky trembled. Suddenly, the temperature of the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian plummeted. The divine king and the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult remained engaged in an extremely intense battle in outer space. However, when they sensed the terrifying killing intent that frightened even them, they could not help but stop and look towards the Dong'an province. Chaotic Prime. The divine king and Huayan both cried out. They became stern. A chaotic prime had appeared in the southern region and in the Dong'an province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian in particular. The divine king was unable to remain calm about this, so he immediately rushed back to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. He no longer bothered about keeping Huayan busy. On the tallest peak of the 3,000 spiritual mountains within the Earth Spirit sect, the eyes of the ancestor, Sang Tu, suddenly snapped open. Surprise filled his face as he looked in the direction of the divine kingdom of Pingtian grimly. What a powerful killing intent. This killing intent originates from a chaotic prime. Is it that woman? Sang Tu became extremely stern. Now that a chaotic prime had suddenly appeared in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, he subconsciously connected it to the woman in white clothes who had infiltrated his secret room silently. No, it's not her. The presences differ too much. Just which expert has come to the divine kingdom of Pingtian, and why is his killing intent so strong? Sang Tu could no longer remain where he was. Immediately, he hurried off to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. At the same time, this matter also alarmed the primordial realm experts of the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire and the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds that stood equal to the Earth Spirit sect. They all emerged from seclusion and hurried off to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. A chaotic prime had appeared in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. This was a significant matter, so they had to investigate. The killing intent that had suddenly appeared in the Tian Yuan clan also made the ninth prince's face change drastically. Suddenly, he looked at the sky as disbelief filled his face. He felt his soul tremble before the killing intent. The killing intent was so powerful that it was enough to annihilate the surroundings. It made the ninth prince feel like his soul had frozen over. Since even a peak god king like the ninth prince experienced that, what happened to the god kings who had come with the ninth prince was obvious. Fright filled all of their faces. Mo Yen stopped stripping Shiyu's clothes. As if a cold bucket of water had been poured over him, his nefarious flames were completely extinguished. You are. The Shi Emperor and the Empress both cried out sorrowfully. The Shi Emperor directly sent out a palm strike that contained terrifying energy towards Mo Yen. A chaotic prime strike created just too great of a disturbance. It was world-shaking. The Shi Emperor's furious strike directly annihilated space, creating black spatial cracks in the sky that spread towards Mo Yen at a speed greater than lightning. From the distance, a black crack seemed to stretch towards the ground. It was like a black streak of lightning. The ninth prince and the other god kings felt like they were suffocating at that moment. Their hearts throbbed heavily as all the hairs on their bodies stood up. They felt a chill run down their spines, from their heads to their feet. Chaotic Prime. The ninth prince lost his composure. His face changed drastically, and he immediately pressed his hand onto his space ring. A jade talisman laid quietly in a corner of his space ring. It had been crushed to dust silently at that moment. Mo Yen had been silently reduced to nothingness. He disappeared from the air, and not even a single dust particle remained. Only the shattered space that slowly closed up remained where he stood before. A mighty god king had just vanished before everyone like that. Had he been reduced to the simplest particles from the Shi Emperor's strike, or had the crack in space sucked him away? However, it was certain that even if Mo Yen was a god king, it was impossible for him to survive a furious strike from a chaotic prime that also contained killing intent. The Shi Emperor's control over his power was extremely great. His furious attack only targeted Mo Yen such that no energy surged out. As a result, his attack resulted in no energy shockwaves, and it also failed to reach anyone in the surroundings. Not even the surroundings were damaged. However, the pressure and terrifying disturbance the attack caused mentally shocked everyone present. You are. The Shi Emperor silently appeared before Shiyu. His stalwart body trembled uncontrollably as tears filled his eyes. He called out emotionally. My daughter, mother has finally found you. Mother has finally found you. The Empress ignored the blood on Shiyu and embraced her tightly. She began to sob as tears flowed from her eyes uncontrollably like a fountain. She was unable to stop crying. She had just found her beloved daughter that had been lost for many years. It should have been something delightful, but when she saw her own flesh and blood end up in such a miserable state, her heart shattered. When she thought about how her own daughter would be completely doomed if she arrived just a little later, the Empress became filled with angst. Who did this? Who injured my daughter like this? The Empress said through gritted teeth, emphasizing every single word. Fury filled her eyes, and just a single, terrifying glance from them was enough to make people shiver. Chapter 1980, The Shi Emperor's Daughter, 3. The Shi Emperor also surged with killing intent. His face became extremely sunken as he gently placed his hand on Shiyu's shoulder. Tremendous vitality parted from his body, entering Shiyu's body in an extremely gentle way. With the channeling of the vitality, Shiyu, who had been at death's door, regained life in a short instance. Some color appeared in her dull eyes while her wounds quickly healed as well. Even her right arm that had been destroyed began to regrow. The severed arm was healing. After all, this was the tremendous vitality of a chaotic prime. This vitality was nothing to a chaotic prime, but to Shiyu, who was only an over-god, this was a power that could change her fate. It basically gave her a second life. Princess Tian and the two old men who had followed along also descended onto the Tian Yuan clan. At that moment, they stared at Shiyu in shock. Princess Tian looked at the bloodied Shiyu in the Empress' embrace. The feelings she experienced were extremely mixed. If she had known earlier that the box Jian Chen had given her was a lead to her aunt's long-lost daughter, she would have forcefully given it to the Empress regardless of the consequences. I can't believe Jian Chen. Why didn't he directly explain such an important thing to me? If I could tell elder sister's whereabouts earlier, she would not end up like this. Princess Tian was very displeased with Jian Chen. As for the two old men who had come with the Shi Emperor, they experienced shock and disbelief. In the Shi Empire, everyone already knew that the Shi Emperor had no children. This was a public fact. However, the Shi Emperor had suddenly gained a daughter now, which surprised the two of them very much. At this moment, the Divine King had arrived in the Tian Yuan clan as well. He concealed his presence and maintained an extremely low profile, so low that barely anyone sensed his arrival. However, when he understood the situation, he knew how to behave and remained quiet. He watched on from one side, looking at the couple and the two old men sternly. He was nowhere near calm inside. He did not know who they were, but he did know that any single one of them possessed a cultivation level that greatly exceeded his own. The arrival of a chaotic prime had utterly terrified the God King, who could control space already. His face paled, and he was no longer in the mood to deal with the people from the Tian Yuan clan. He immediately released the trapped space. The important members of the Tian Yuan clan recovered their freedom, including Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu. All of them felt like they had just escaped death. However, when they looked at Shiyu, who the Empress embraced, none of them said anything. They were also stunned. The original patriarch of the Mo clan, Mo Xingfeng, experienced extremely mixed feelings as he looked at the Emperor and the Empress. As for the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire, he had become unsettled. He studied the Emperor and the Empress carefully. However, his gaze was fixed on the dragon robes that the Shi Emperor wore. Dragon robes and a chaotic prime. Is he, as a person who possessed authority in the Blood Sun Empire, the 9th Prince was naturally knowledgeable. He completely exceeded the divine king in this aspect, so he quickly guessed the Shi Emperor's identity, which caused his heart to sink. Impossible. Doesn't the Shi Emperor of the northern region have no children? Why is there a daughter now? And the daughter is, the ninth prince's face became extremely ugly. The light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. With his quick thoughts, he made a decision and began to back off silently. He wanted to leave without drawing any attention to himself. No one can leave before I properly investigate if there's anyone else involved in my daughter's wounds. However, just when the ninth prince moved, the empress' cold voice rang out, and pressure immediately fell on the ninth prince. The ninth prince's body sank. Under the tremendous pressure, his legs directly sank into the ground, leaving only his knees visible. Seeing how leaving silently would no longer work, the ninth prince could only raise his two hands with his full strength reluctantly now that he had run out of choices. He clasped his fist, "I am the ninth prince of the Blood Sun Empire, and I greet the Shi Emperor and the Empress. It really is an honor for our southern region to have you personally visit. If there are any places I can help, I am more than willing to." The Shi Emperor? Empress? The divine king was startled inside. The ninth prince's identity had already surprised him enough, but when the ninth prince mentioned the Shi Emperor and the Empress, he directly connected it to the eternal Shi Empire of the northern region. The Shi Emperor? Is the chaotic prime in dragon robes the current emperor of the eternal Shi Empire of the north? Even with the divine king's composure, he struggled to remain calm at this moment. He looked at Shiyu, who laid in the Empress' embrace, and was extremely shocked. However, after the Shi Emperor and the Empress learnt who the ninth prince was, they still did not budge. The Empress stared at the ninth prince coldly and said, "Are you among the people who injured my daughter?" The Empress' voice was filled with killing intent, such that people believed without any doubt that even if he was the ninth prince of the eternal Blood Sun Empire, she would still be bold enough to kill him. The ninth prince's face did not change. He clasped his fist. "You are mistaken, Empress. The Emperor has already dealt with the person who injured your daughter. I am congratulating the Emperor and the Empress for your reunion with your daughter. Don't lie. The person who injured Shiyu and destroyed her arm was clearly you." Just when the ninth prince had finished speaking, Shiyu's foster father, Mo Xingfeng, said furiously from among the crowd. "Humph, don't you tell dirty lies. If the Tian Yuan clan dares to slander me any further, I can wipe out your entire clan with a single word with my authority. Even the divine kingdom of Ping Tian won't be able to save you." The ninth prince's eyes turned cold, and he glared at Mo Xingfeng extremely sharply. The glance was like a sword, directly stabbing into Mo Xingfeng's soul, making him tremble violently and pale instantly. How imposing! The Empress snorted coldly. She held Shiyu with one hand as she directly swung her other hand at the ninth prince. She condensed a hand of energy that slapped the ninth prince's face viciously, sending him flying. The slap was extraordinarily powerful. Half of the ninth prince's face had been reduced to a bloody mess while his entire jaw had been shattered. Blood covered his face. The ninth prince and his mighty cultivation of peak God King only seemed like an infant before the Empress. He was unable to resist at all. The souls of all the people from the Tian Yuan clan were extremely shocked from that. Previously, they had used the power of their entire clan, yet they failed to resist at all before the ninth prince's people. They could only watch disaster descend. Yet now, the ninth prince and all his people, who were so powerful that they could easily destroy the entire Tian Yuan clan in their eyes, was as weak as a child before the Empress. All the people from the Tian Yuan clan felt like they were dreaming when they witnessed this dramatic change in the situation. The Empress knelt on the ground with one knee as she held Shiyu. Shiyu's blood had already dyed her clothes red. The Empress stared at the ninth prince that she had sent flying with killing intent, and she said frigidly, "Is that true? Did Yuer's wounds really come from you? Did you really destroy Yuer's arm?" At that moment, Shiyu had finally recovered after receiving the tremendous vitality of a chaotic prime. Her missing arm had regrown as well. She struggled and escaped from the Empress' embrace before standing up. She stared at the Empress and the Emperor in confusion. The Empress immediately looked at Shiyu, and her glare softened instantly. A motherly light filled her eyes as she asked in concern, "Child, how do you feel?" Tell father who injured you. It doesn't matter who they are or what status they possess, I'll take revenge for you. I won't let any of them go." The Shi Emperor supported Shiyu carefully with one of his strong, robust arms. His eyes were gentle, and they were also filled with care. Shiyu gently broke free from the Shi Emperor's arm and looked at the Emperor and the Empress in confusion. She slowly staggered backwards as she said gently, "Who are you?" I don't know you." When the Shi Emperor and the Empress heard Shiyu's last sentence, the plain voice had instead made the two primordial realm experts shudder inside. Evident sorrow filled their faces. When the Shi Emperor and the Empress heard Shiyu's last sentence, the plain voice had instead made the two primordial realm experts shudder inside. Evident sorrow filled their faces. The Shi Emperor was a vicious person who had created storms of blood and had personally killed half of the primordial realm experts in his empire. He was a cold-blooded emperor who even turned against his brothers. Yet, his face was filled with an indescribable bitterness right now. His arm remained extended in the posture where he supported Shiyu before. It seemed to be frozen there. His beloved daughter's previous words were like a needle, deeply piercing the Shi Emperor's heart with pain. Tears welled up in the eyes of the Shi Emperor. They seemed to roll down the cheeks of the Emperor famed for his cold-bloodedness uncontrollably. His stalwart body trembled slightly as he stared at Shiyu in utter pain. He opened his mouth slightly as if he wanted to explain something. However, when he saw the marks of blood on his daughter, he failed to say anything. "Child, I'm your mother, the mother who gave birth to you. This is your father connected to you by blood." The Empress broke out into tears. She charged over and embraced Shiyu tightly regardless of anything. She held her very tightly, where Shiyu was unable to break free at all. It was as if her daughter would vanish from her if she let go. At that moment, she was no longer the great empress of the Shi Empire, nor was she a peak expert who had reached the primordial realm. She was only a mother with a fragile heart. By now, crowds had already formed around the Tian Yuan clan. The primordial realm experts of the Heavenly Moon Empire had arrived as well. They stood with the Divine King, conversing secretly to ask about the situation here. However, the surroundings were extraordinarily quiet even though so many people had gathered around. They all watched on silently as they were in turmoil inside. The ninth prince who the Empress had sent flying did not dare to make any sounds at all. He looked at the Empress who sobbed while embracing Shiyu and the heartbroken Shi Emperor beside her. He felt bitter inside. He would have never thought that the overgod he randomly came across in the Tian Yuan clan when he came looking for the person who had taken his flower of ways would actually be the princess of the Shi Empire of the North. Moreover, this princess had almost died to his hands. At this moment, the ninth prince experienced deep regret. He also felt extremely victimized. If he had known that Shiyu was the only daughter of the current emperor of the Shi Empire earlier, he would have never touched a hair on her even if he were 100 times bolder. Although the Blood Sun Empire was just like the Shi Empire, a ruler of an entire region, the current emperor of the Blood Sun Empire, the ninth prince's father, had many children. He was only one of the many children under the emperor. If the interests of the empire were truly threatened, his status as prince could be removed at any time. However, Shiyu was the only daughter of the Shi Emperor. Moreover, from the emotions the Shi Emperor and the Empress had shown, there was no doubt that they were willing to give up everything for their daughter. Shiyu was unable to break free from the Empress' embrace no matter what, so she just gave up. She allowed herself to be embraced like that. It was just that she clearly struggled to accept these people who had suddenly said they were her parents. She resisted instinctively. "No, no. You're not my parents. I don't have parents. I only have a foster father." Shiyu shook her head gently. She spoke very softly, but tears welled up in her eyes. The Empress looked at Shiyu gently, and she used her right hand to wipe away the blood on Shiyu's face softly. The blood had already dyed the Empress white, soft hands red. She said with a trembling voice, "Dumb child, don't say dumb things. When mother and father abandoned you, we had no other choice either. Mother knows you resent us, and mother also knows that you cannot forgive us. But since we found you now, mother will use the rest of her life to properly make it up to you." The Shi Emperor also walked over. He sighed gently, "It has been tough for you in the past few years. It's just like what your mother said. When we abandoned you in the past, it was all to protect you. I'll explain the exact reason later. Right now, tell father just who else has harassed you among the people here. I'll help you deal with them." The expressions of the ninth prince and his henchmen all changed when they heard the Shi Emperor's words. Even though they were all god kings, they could not help but tremble inside. The ninth prince secretly panicked. He had already sent a message, but his father still had not come. He had no doubts that the Shi Emperor would kill him without any hesitation if the Blood Sun Empire still did not send any people. He would not take his status into account at all. After all, the Shi Emperor was famed for his viciousness and brutality. This time, Shiyu finally broke free from the Empress' embrace. When she thought about the current situation of the Tian Yuan clan, Shiyu immediately jumped slightly. She stopped wondering if the people before her were her parents immediately and quickly looked around. Nubis. Suddenly, Shiyu cried out and arrived beside Nubis with a single step. Nubis currently laid on the ground with his eyes widened. The top of his skull had shattered, and his soul had been removed. Shiyu became furious. Fuming hatred filled her eyes, and she said painfully, "Why, you've killed Nubis." Nubis was a close friend of Jian Chen. Shiyu had no idea how sad Jian Chen would become once he heard that Nubis was dead. The God King who had taken Nubis' soul immediately paled. He added in a hurry, "And no. Your Highness, please don't jump to conclusions. He's not dead. His soul is here." The God King's attitude had undergone a complete reversal. Before he had even finished speaking, he took out Nubis' soul in a hurry. He passed it in front of Shiyu carefully as uneasiness filled his eyes. At that moment, his arms, and even his entire body shook gently. He was filled with fright. Nubis' soul was fine. Once he broke free, he immediately returned to his body. However, his body was severely injured, so he seemed extremely weak right now. Yener, suddenly, Mo Xingfeng's sorrowful voice rang out. Only when she heard her foster father's sorrowful calls did Shiyu remember that Mo Yen had been standing in the crowd before. Even deities would struggle to endure the compression of space, so Mo Yen with her Saint Emperor cultivation was. When she thought up to there, Shiyu's face became extremely pale in a single instance. She rushed past everyone as quickly as she could. However, when she arrived there, she could not find Mo Yen at all. All she saw was a heap of blood and flesh with ripped cloth scattered in between it. It was the clothes that Mo Yen liked to wear the most. Mo Xingfeng currently knelt before the pile of flesh and blood. He was grief-stricken. The sight roared through Shiyu's head like a bolt of lightning. It stunned her instantly, and she began to totter heavily, almost falling to the ground. She had already become extremely pale. Shiyu fell onto her bottom as she stared at the pile of indistinguishable blood and flesh. Her mind was about to collapse as tears flowed down her cheeks uncontrollably. Yener, Shiyu murmured subconsciously. She could not help but think of the mischievous, energetic girl of the past. She was heartbroken. She and Mo Yen were so close that it was not something anyone else could understand. It could even be said that Mo Yen was the person closest to her in the world. She was even more attached to Mo Yen than her foster father, Mo Xingfeng. At this moment, the Shi Emperor and the Empress made their way over. The Shi Emperor glanced at the pile of flesh before squatting down beside Shiyu. He placed his hand on her shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry and don't feel sad. Father's here. The Shi Emperor spoke very softly, but his voice was powerful and filled with deep confidence. It was like there were very few things in the world that he could not do or resolve. The Shi Emperor spoke very softly, but his voice was powerful and filled with deep confidence. It was like there were very few things in the world that he could not do or resolve. The light in Shi Yu's eyes immediately returned when she heard the Shi Emperor's words, as her mind almost collapsed. As if she had seen a sliver of light in the darkness, she looked at the striking, middle-aged man in dragon robes. She asked in a hurry, can you really save Yener? The Shi Emperor looked at Shi Yu and said, since the person called Yener is so important to you, I'll make her appear before you again regardless of the price. As long as you can be happy, I will do anything for you. Shi Emperor. When the two old men who had followed along heard the Shi Emperor's words, they immediately became alarmed. They wanted to warn him. However, just when they were about to say something, the Shi Emperor raised his hand to shut them up. The two old men looked at each other. The Shi Emperor was the current emperor of the Shi Empire. A qualified emperor would never place too much importance on his personal affairs. He would work towards the interests of the empire for everything. He would even give up on his children at crucial times. However, the Shi Emperor did not value the interests of the empire at all. Instead, he did everything for his daughter. He could even say that he would do anything for his daughter. As the person in charge of an eternal empire, they definitely could not say something like that. They could not even consider it. The silent divine king and the primordial realm experts of the heavenly moon empire nearby were experiencing internal turmoil. Some of them even looked at Shi Yu in envy. In the lands of the cloud plain, would there still be any person bold enough to provoke the lady called Shi Yu, seeing how she could get the emperor of an eternal empire, a chaotic prime, to make a promise like that? Senior, can you really save Yener? Mo Xingfeng stared at the Shi Emperor as he asked with a trembling voice. The Shi Emperor nodded. Although her soul is gone, fortunately, she's not very powerful, and her soul hasn't completely dispersed either. It has been scattered in this space with some fragments remaining. All you need is a radiant God King who has condensed the 7 colored flowers to save her. And my empire just happens to have a radiant God King. With that, the Shi Emperor formed a seal with his hand. He sent off an edict into the air, which flew towards the Shi Empire of the northern region. Thank you for saving my daughter, Senior. Thank you. Mo Xingfeng was overjoyed as he expressed his gratitude several times. Shi Yu also let out a breath of relief now that Mo Yen could be revived. Afterwards, she looked at the 9th prince and his god kings. Fury immediately sprang up in her eyes, and she said through gritted teeth, the disaster of the clan was all caused by them. All of them should die. The Empress looked at Shi Yu and nodded lovingly. Then, she looked at the 9th prince and his people, and her eyes immediately turned cold. With a flash, the Empress arrived before a god king who followed the 9th prince. She directly extended a slender finger towards him, sealing up all his cultivation instantly. Then, she tossed him before Shi Yu like he was a dead dog. From the start till the end, the God King did nothing. This was because the difference in strength was just far too great. Before the Empress, he was like an ant. I never thought the Empress' strength would be unfathomable as well. She's at the 6th heavenly layer at the very least. The Divine King and the primordial realm experts of the heavenly moon empire all jumped inside when they saw the Empress move. The Empress continued, capturing all the other god kings the 9th prince had brought with him. She tossed them all before Shi Yu. Even the 9th prince of exalted status, known to be the most likely successor of the current emperor, was not spared. The Empress mercilessly sealed up his cultivation and tossed him before Shi Yu. The 9th prince's face became extremely ugly. He growled, "Your Majesty, I am a prince of the Blood Sun Empire. If you treat me like this, it'll affect the relationship between our Blood Sun Empire and your Shi Empire. You're too noisy." The Empress called out coldly and slapped the 9th prince again, striking his other cheek. The slap sent the 9th prince flying once again while his other cheek had become bloody as well. His face was no longer distinguishable. Moreover, the bottom half of his skull had shattered to pieces. However, the Empress treated it like it was nothing. She did not even glance at the ninth prince after doing that. Instead, she turned around to look at Shi Yu and said gently and caringly, these people can't resist anymore. Do you want Mother to avenge you, or do you want to deal with them yourself? Shi Yu said nothing. She stared at the God Kings furiously as the arrogant, condescending scenes of the God Kings flashed through her head clearly. Killing intent immediately filled her eyes. She absolutely resented these God Kings. If it were not for the timely arrival of the Shi Emperor and the Empress, the entire Tian Yuan clan would have probably been slaughtered. As a result, she wanted to deal with the God Kings personally. Shi Yu brought her hands forwards and a strand of resplendent sword qi gradually appeared between her hands. She stabbed it towards one of them. Calm yourself, Shi Emperor. Please show mercy. At this moment, an ancient voice rang out in the sky. It was thunderous, and it rolled through the surroundings and lingered for a long time. Space distorted in the sky, and a few figures suddenly appeared. At the very front were two ruddy old men. They concealed their presences, so they seemed like ordinary people, making it completely impossible to see through their cultivation. However, as they stood there, the world around them seemed to pale and dull. Behind the two old men was a middle-aged man in dragon robes. He appeared to be dignified and seemed to be somewhat similar to the ninth prince. This was the Emperor of the Blood Sun Empire, known as the Blood Emperor by others. A few experts of the imperial family had come along as well, standing behind the Blood Emperor. At the same time, in the distant north, 3 ancient stone towers quietly stood in the forbidden grounds of the Shi Empire. The stone towers were not tall, but they seemed like they were connected with the world. Extremely powerful laws revolved around the surroundings of each stone tower. Haoshuan, Haoming, go visit the southern region. Our Shi Empire can't lose in terms of impression no matter what. At this moment, an ancient voice rang out from one of the stone towers. Ancestral Emperor, Xian's long-lost daughter, an ancient voice also rang out from another stone tower. She has been found, said the person in the first stone tower. Been found? Finally. During all these years, Xian has almost gone insane for his daughter. He is finally able to get this off his chest. The person in the second stone tower exhaled deeply as if he could finally relax. The situation is rather complicated. With Xian's temperament, he'll probably cause quite the trouble. The two of you need to go this time so our Shi Empire doesn't lose in terms of impression, but you also need to stop Xian from causing trouble that can't be dealt with. Go, the voice in the first stone tower rang out. Yes, Ancestral Emperor. The people in the other 2 towers responded. With that, the presences of the 2 stone towers suddenly changed, and the towers immediately became seemingly simple. The powerful laws that revolved around them had completely vanished. The towers were already empty. The ninth prince who the Empress had sent flying with a single slap finally stopped worrying when he saw the Blood Emperor and the 2 old men who stood in front of the Blood Emperor arrive on time. He rose up and flew behind the Blood Emperor as quickly as he could as if he had just been spared. The ninth prince who the Empress had sent flying with a single slap finally stopped worrying when he saw the Blood Emperor and the 2 old men who stood in front of the Blood Emperor arrive on time. He rose up and flew behind the Blood Emperor as quickly as he could as if he had just been spared. However, even though the reinforcements of the Blood Sun Empire had come, the ninth prince still seemed like he was fleeing for his life from how hurriedly he behaved. It was like the Shi Emperor or the Empress would stop him if he were slightly slower. Greetings to Father, to the 2 ancestral emperors. The ninth prince behaved extremely politely as he said all these words with great difficulty. After enduring 2 slaps from the Empress, his entire jaw had been destroyed, so his words were no longer audible. The Blood Emperor stood dignified. He glanced at the ninth prince emotionlessly, without showing any care. Instead, he said in a sharp, deep voice, "Stand behind us." He spoke firmly and decisively. Yes. The ninth prince answered politely, but his heart felt very heavy. He knew that after what had happened here today, he was no longer as important to his father as before. This filled him with bitterness. All he wanted to do was find the primordial realm expert who had stolen his flower of ways, but he had never thought that he would create such a big mess, even alarming the ancestral emperors of the empire. The Shi Emperor looked at the two ancestral emperors emotionlessly. His gaze was cold. He said, "You've finally come. That'll save me a trip to the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire. But regarding the mercy I should show, who exactly should I show it to? Is it these god kings? Or the prince who had almost killed my daughter? Or should I show mercy to your Blood Sun Empire?" The Shi Empire spoke icily, his voice filled with heavy killing intent. He was still extremely domineering even before the two ancestral emperors of the Blood Sun Empire. The two ancestral emperors remained calm against the Shi Emperor's forceful words. One of them said, "Please calm down, Shi Emperor. We roughly understand the cause of this matter. This is indeed our fault, but fortunately, the matter hasn't developed into a big mistake. Our Blood Sun Empire will compensate your beloved daughter for her injuries, so we hope the Shi Emperor can be the bigger person and not stoop as low as this junior." The Shi Emperor's face sank suddenly. Killing intent shone in his eyes as he called out coldly, "When I came here, Yuer had already lost an arm. She was extremely heavily injured, and she was at death's door. Moreover, the people of your Blood Sun Empire wanted to force yourself onto her whilst she was so heavily injured. Is that not a big mistake? Or are you saying that it's not a big mistake once Yuer dies?" The more the Shi Emperor spoke, the more furious he became. At that moment, he was like an aggravated lion. He wanted blood. The expressions of the two ancestral emperors did not change. They looked at the Shi Emperor calmly. One of them flipped their hand, and immediately, a droplet of green liquid appeared. It gave off a mysterious pulse. Everyone's soul trembled with the appearance of the liquid. Indescribable comfort welled up in the depths of their souls as if their souls were being strengthened. Even the Divine King and the primordial realm experts of the Heavenly Moon Empire experienced the same thing. The pulses that the liquid gave off could actually affect infinite primes. That seems to be spiritual essence of starry skies. An infinite prime from the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire called out. Spiritual essence of starry skies was stuff of legends to these infinite primes. The future accomplishments of a cultivator and how far they would manage to climb with cultivation was mostly related to their talent and affinity for comprehension. The affinity for comprehension was especially important. Along the path of cultivation, comprehending battle skills, comprehending the mysteries of the world, and grasping the laws of the world were all related to a person's affinity for comprehension. The greater their affinity, the faster they would be able to comprehend battle skills, and the easier they would understand the laws of the world. In the vast saints' world, there were countless people stuck at reciprocity. They were clearly only a step away from godhood, but they would never be able to take this step in their lifetime. This would not be caused by a lack of talent, but rather a lack of affinity for comprehension. They would never be able to grasp the laws of the world and obtain the key to godhood. After reaching godhood, each realm of cultivation required a corresponding amount of comprehension for the laws of the world. This was more than enough to demonstrate just how important the affinity for comprehension was for cultivation. However, the spiritual essence of starry skies just happened to be an absolute treasure that could increase a person's affinity for comprehension. It could even tempt infinite primes. This was because the increase in affinity the spiritual essence of starry skies brought was not temporary, unlike how comprehension T only increased comprehension for a certain time frame. It was permanent. If a droplet of spiritual essence of starry skies was given to someone with poor talent, it would make their affinity for comprehension shocking, turning them into a complete prodigy. Shi Emperor, you should understand the value of this droplet of spiritual essence of starry skies. May I ask if this is enough to resolve your grievances? An ancestral emperor asked. However, the Shi Emperor did not waver at all. He said coldly, the injuries to Yuer cannot be compensated by anything. Debts of blood must be repaid with blood. The Shi Emperor spoke confidently, without any hesitation at all. Then, he turned to look at Shi Yu and said, Yuer, do it. Kill these god kings. I'd like to see who dares to stop it. Towards the end, a powerful presence radiated from the Shi Emperor, crushing down on the two ancestral emperors in an overwhelming manner. The two ancestral emperors who had remained calm for the entire time finally changed in expression slightly. They frowned faintly. The Blood Emperor behind them glanced at the ninth prince slightly. A sliver of coldness appeared in his dignified gaze. He sighed inside and thought, my ninth son really has gone too far this time. Of all the people he could offend, he just had to choose the Shi Emperor of the Shi Empire. Shi Yu hesitated slightly before striking out with confidence. She killed the God Kings without showing any mercy. Faced with Shi Yu's attacks, the God Kings who had their cultivations sealed were unable to dodge at all. They could only watch death approach them. The two ancestral emperors from the Blood Sun Empire watched on and did not choose to interfere. They had some understanding of the Shi Emperor's temperament. He was a vicious person who could commit madness for his daughter without looking at the bigger picture at all. His massacre of the many primordial realm experts in the Shi Empire and personal slaughtering of his brothers was the best evidence. Even the authoritative Grand Imperial Protector of the Shi Empire had not been spared. Against someone so vicious, there would definitely be a battle between chaotic primes if they interfered to save these God Kings. Very soon, Shi Yu had dealt with all the God Kings who had come with the ninth prince. Sword Qi pierced their foreheads, dispersing their souls and killing them completely. They did not possess a tough body like Jian Chen's chaotic body. They could emerge unscathed from attacks of overgods, but once their cultivation was sealed up, even deities and origin realm experts could hurt them, let alone overgods. Shi Emperor, are you satisfied now? Once all the God Kings died, an ancestral emperor asked. Hand over the ninth prince, the Shi Emperor said emotionlessly. He spoke firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. This time, the two ancestral emperors struggled to remain composed. Their faces changed slightly. Even the Blood Emperor standing behind them revealed an ugly expression. Ignoring the heinous deeds the ninth prince had committed, he was still a member of the imperial family, a direct son of the Blood Sun Empire. His life did not matter, but he did represent the Blood Sun Empire. The hearts of the two ancestral emperors sank. They did not care about the life of the ninth prince. What they truly cared about was the dignity of the Blood Sun Empire. If they really handed over the ninth prince, and the Shi Emperor killed him right in front of them, would their Blood Sun Empire still have any dignity? Shi Emperor, we cannot hand you the prince. You've killed the God Kings and gotten your revenge. We'll compensate everything your beloved daughter has suffered from with this droplet of spiritual essence of starry skies. Let's just leave the matter at this. What do you think, Shi Emperor? Said an ancestral emperor of the Blood Sun Empire. He had also spoken firmly, unwilling to hand over the ninth prince. Shi Emperor, we cannot hand you the prince. You've killed the God Kings and gotten your revenge. We'll compensate everything your beloved daughter has suffered from with this droplet of spiritual essence of starry skies. Let's just leave the matter at this. What do you think, Shi Emperor? Said an ancestral emperor of the Blood Sun Empire. He had also spoken firmly, unwilling to hand over the ninth prince. If their Blood Sun Empire really allowed the ninth prince to be executed over some injuries to the Shi Emperor's beloved daughter, their status in the southern region would plummet. The Shi Emperor did not accept it at all. He snorted coldly, the true person behind yours injuries is still alive, so how have we gotten our revenge? Blood Sun Empire, let me just ask you one question. Are you going to hand him over or not? Shi Emperor, your daughter is completely fine now, so why must you demand so much for this matter? Do you really have to make a huge scene out of a petty matter? Why must you go so far? An ancestral emperor asked. The Blood Emperor did not even possess the right to speak before the two ancestral emperors. My daughter almost died here. That is no petty matter. The Shi Emperor's face was sunken. Killing intent filled his eyes. Afterwards, a ruler's presence began to radiate from him. At that moment, he seemed like the ruler of the world. He stared at the people from the Blood Sun Empire coldly and said with an extremely dignified voice, "If you don't hand him over, our Shi Emperor will declare war on your Blood Sun Empire." The Shi Emperor's words were shocking. That short sentence boomed like thunder, deeply stunning everyone present. At that moment, whether it was the people of the Tian Yuan clan, the Divine King, or the primordial realm experts from the Heavenly Moon Empire, they were all shocked. They stared at the Shi Emperor in disbelief. The Shi Empire and the Blood Sun Empire represented the northern and southern regions respectively. They were empires who reigned across an entire region. Once a battle between the two eternal empires erupted, it would directly develop into a battle between two regions. The Shi Emperor would actually go as far as to declare war on the Blood Sun Empire for his daughter, regardless of the consequences. It made the expressions of all the people from the Blood Sun Empire change drastically. A madman. The Shi Emperor is a madman beyond control. Although his daughter was injured, isn't she standing beside him right now in perfect condition? Yet he still wants to declare war against our Blood Sun Empire. Doesn't he know how severe the consequences would be once two eternal empires go to war against each other? The Blood Emperor looked at the Shi Emperor as he cursed inside. Only the current emperor of the Shi Empire could do something as absurd as this. The two ancestral emperors became stern at that moment. The emperors of eternal empires did not joke around. Since the Shi Emperor had said he would declare war, he definitely was not lying. He was ready to follow through on his words. No matter how mentally sturdy the ninth prince was, he still paled at this moment. He had never thought that injuring an overgod in a tiny clan would develop into a war between two eternal empires. This had frightened him. As the cause of all this, Shiyu looked at the Shi Emperor with extremely mixed feelings. She experienced a multitude of emotions. Even she could not properly describe what she was feeling right now. It was even more evident for the important members of the Tian Yuan clan. They were completely dumbfounded. The two ancestral emperors looked at each other as their eyebrows were locked together tightly. They felt quite the headache when they faced the Shi Emperor, who completely ignored the bigger picture and would do anything for his daughter, even if it meant involving the entire Eternal Empire. Ziyun, calm down. At this moment, an ancient voice rang out. With it, the space beside the Shi Emperor rippled, and two ruddy old men emerged silently. They were Shi Haoshuan and Shi Haoming, who had hurried over from the Shi Empire. They were the ancestral emperors of the Shi Empire. As for Shi Haoshuan, he was the father of the current emperor, Shi Ziyun. The appearance of Shi Haoshuan and Shi Haoming did not make the Shi Emperor's expression change at all. On the other hand, the Empress immediately showed respect. She pulled Shiyu over and bowed at Shi Haoshuan and Shi Haoming first before looking at Shiyu. She said gently, they're your grandfather and great-grandfather. Why don't you greet them? Don't. He's not worthy of being your grandfather. However, the Shi Emperor appeared before Shiyu and said emotionlessly right after the Empress spoke. Bitterness immediately filled Shi Haoshuan's face. He sighed gently as he studied Shiyu with his eyes. There was some benevolence in his gaze as well. Ziyun, there's too much involved in declaring war. You can't say that so easily, Shi Haoming said to the Shi Emperor sternly. I'm the current emperor and one of the ancestral emperors of the Shi Empire. I have the authority. If the Blood Sun Empire doesn't hand him over, then I can only declare war, the Shi Emperor said coldly. He showed no respect. Shi Haoming also sighed when he saw how stubborn the Shi Emperor was. He felt rather helpless about the Shi Emperor. As an ancestral emperor of the Shi Empire, he was a paramount existence. He represented the supreme authority of the Eternal Empire. If the current emperor dared to turn against him, he could even lay him off with a single word. However, Shi Ziyun was rather special. special to the point where even Shi Haoming and Shi Haoshuan, his two seniors, had to let him have his way most of the time. Ziyun, let me talk with the Blood Sun Empire instead. I'll try to reach a solution where we're both happy, Shi Haoming said to the Shi Emperor. In the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire in the southern region, Jian Chen and Kaya quickly made their way through the bustling streets. They hurried towards the center of the city. It was closest to the imperial palace there, so it was the safest place in the southern region. The Blood Sun Empire is the ruler of the southern region as the only eternal empire. The imperial palace is important in the Blood Sun Empire as well, so fighting is naturally prohibited. I hope this place can keep Huayan at bay, Jian Chen thought. Now that he had raised the attention of a vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult, he felt like he was in great danger at all times. After all, a primordial realm expert was hunting him down. Although the Divine King had kept Huayan busy, he understood that this was only temporary. The Divine King could not buy a lot of time for him. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.